Three. It's Thursday night, and you thought I was just going to go right to it. I'm not. I'm going to say something funny. Here it comes. Everybody gather around the internet fireplace known as Twitch because it's Thursday night. And you know what that means? It's time for Hey, did you see this one?
In a world where creativity is buried and dead, a mysterious movie studio lies in waiting, tinkering away with the tools used for captivating audiences, with heartwarming stories crafted through the exquisite art of stop-frame animation. It's time to take your first steps, or perhaps revisit them, on a whimsical journey where the magic of this unique technique unfolds, immersing you in a world of wonder and enchantment and shadow. But amidst the captivating visuals, when the world seems dark and life feels like a heavy raincoat, Hey, did you see this one? Reminds you to slow down and take things frame by frame.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hey, Did You See This One, the weekly review and reaction podcast, where we pick a movie and we talk about it, and we have a guest. And there's two guests, and there's one host. There's two hosts and one guest.
I'm technically a guest who just shows up every week,
every single
forever.
Week. I'm your first host, Jason R. Phillips, and Steve is the second host. Steve Waters is our second host, your second host. This is episode 124. 124 of Hey, Did You See This One? And our guest this week is the remarkable Cassandra Hodgins.
I will take that. Thank you very much.
I should have put that in the credits. And special guest, the remarkable Cassandra
I love adding a title to my name. It's nice.
That's new this episode. We got rid of the AI nonsense that we still had when you were on last, and we're just gonna give titles to people. This is, of course, as I said, a movie podcast. This week we are talking about Coraline. We are still in February, which means it is the frame by frame Did You Like This One month. And
you're so funny, Jason.
Why am I
Your
funny?
jokes just make me smile. They're very funny.
Well, that's now I'm blushing probably. You can't see it because I'm so washed out by this ring light.
Checks out.
But that said, the last two episodes I kept saying I'm going to ask at the end of the episode if you like this one, but it was very obvious that we liked both so far. I think it's going to be similar this week, so if I forget once again, that's the gag. I'm doing a bit. So welcome to the show, Cass.
Thank you.
I think
for the 100th time, you're back.
It's been a few now.
Yeah.
I think 6.
I haven't updated the spreadsheet, but I have you on. I was taking a tally, and I think you're at 5. That's why your image has changed. That's a thing.
I got an upgrade.
Yeah. You sent me those lovely pictures. They look more in line with our goofy faces instead of looking like super professional.
I really like that one. I did it for a commercial audition where they also wanted like snapshots of you looking very commercial like, and I was like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
I'll make faces, whatever you want.
I'll do all kinds of faces.
Yeah.
But we do, I forget if we were doing this segment when you were here last, but we do have a segment that we do each and every week. And as soon as I get to the, hey, did you see this one sounds folder? This is fan guessing game.
Okay.
It's the fan guessing game.
Congratulations! You have successfully guessed the correct answer, which is the answer you provided. Congratulations!
Congratulations! So each and every week, on Monday and Tuesday night this week, I went pretty late because I was busy and I was, I put off social media stuff. If you're looking for us on certain social medias, I got rid of it. I got rid of X/Twitter. I got rid of Threads. I got rid of Blue Sky. I got rid of Hive. I got rid of Mastodon. I don't get any interaction from those. We don't have any followers. It's pointless for me to post to those. So I'm sticking to just Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, where we do have like a bit of a following.
Because you're not posting any of your political opinions on those other ones.
Yeah, if I was super racist on X, then we'd probably have millions of views right now.
If you called all the movies that we've done woke, even though they were like made before woke became like a mainstream concept of idiocy.
Madison's watching Deep Space. She just finished Picard. She's watching Deep Space Nine now, and I walked in and it was, I don't know their names, so I'll just get to the joke.
Oboe.
No, but I was like, no, sorry, Voyager. I was
Crag.
like, no wonder this show's failing. It's so woke. They have female Worf and an indigenous person, and she got a super mild chuckle.
And they're having a conversation with each other.
Whoa.
That show came out in like 1996, so just keep that in mind, you idiots.
Right.
Not you two, the idiots who.
I saw a couple of funny like TikToks the other day, or maybe it was today. I don't remember, but it's about the X-Men 97 coming out and how people are going to start calling it woke. And it's like, it's a continuation of the same show.
Also, the second pack of X-Men were super varied and super inclusive.
But I mean, even the the 90s cartoon version 90s, of them. Yeah. It's like they were already kind of like forward thinking. Anyway,
or maybe just
X-Men
recognizing
podcast.
people are people. That's cool.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But when I say forward thinking, I mean getting away from shitty thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The original X-Men were literally 5 white kids. That said, I put up a bit of the poster each week. I have people guess. The first poster I put up, people were like, "What?" But the second one I put up, I got some hooks. So here we go.
That first one was tough, Jason. I was looking at it and I was like, I know this movie like the back of my hand, and I could never guess that.
I'm on the episode this week, and what movie are we doing again? Mm-hmm. So first up was B. Dolly, who's going to be on next month, I believe. They said, I'm so excited. And again, no plug, except for maybe Neil Gaiman is the greatest living fiction author. That's a pretty bold statement. We'll see what they have to say and more when they're on for...
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
I mean, yeah.
He made Sandman. Come on.
He likes weird doors, weird mystical doors. I'll say that.
Who doesn't love weird mystical doors?
It's like one of my favorite things.
One of your favorite gimmicks. Lauren Caborn, once again, is back. He got it right. He said, starting to wonder if I watch too many cartoons. His message to the world is, you don't need to be a superhero to get the girl. The right girl will bring out the hero in you. Well, I didn't pre-read that, but that's okay. Let's just say you don't need to be a superhero to get the right person. The right person.
I like that.
We'll bring out the hero in you.
That's cute.
I think he was probably quoting something.
That's
Maybe.
true. But his shameless plug is the Africville Forever podcast. If you don't know, Africville was a cordoned off section of Halifax where they basically sent the black people during colonial times. And it's very famous, and I'm glad that there's a podcast for this. And it's an older but award-winning podcast. And he went on to say, in 1969, the last home in the black community of Africville was flattened. The bulldozer was hired by a city that had schemed to claim this valuable land for generations. In this 5-part series, we will tell the story of this unique and beautiful place. Born out of adversity, it thrived as a safe haven for people of African descent in Canada. And there is a URL. It's africville-forever.simplecast.com. And that's go listen to that, because me and Lauren are from the same place. We're both from Halifax, and that is ingrained sort of in our history. We're taught it in school. It was a travesty. My grandfather tells stories because he was in the Navy in like the 50s and 60s when it was still around, and he said it was atrocious. So go listen to that.
Sounds super interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Absolutely. I'll send you the link after the show. I'll put it in the show notes as well. Podcaster Ouch, Was That a Ghost? I wanted to plug their podcast. They do a spooky podcast about spooky things. They wanted me to sing talking about Coraline. Was that a song from the movie? Did I miss
It's
something?
like one of the only songs.
It's the song from the movie.
The
What
one
do you
that sounds
mean?
like sitting is the opposite of standing.
No, that's the jingle that plays. It's the one that
Making
her
up
dad
the song
plays
about
on the piano.
Coraline. Yeah,
Oh
that
yes.
one.
Okay.
The one where John Hodgman is replaced by the guy from Mice and Men or whatever that band is called.
No, it's They Will Be Giants.
There we go.
They might be giants. I knew it was him. I was going to call that out later. We had a couple of regular guesses. Melissa Lieber, I believe she guessed.
Mussolini?
Mussolini's ghost.
Jesus.
Melissa Lieber.
Oh.
John Welsh got it as well. No shout-outs from them. The Josh and Polly show once again got it right. I believe Polly from that set, or I don't know the difference between the two of them yet. I'm working on it, guys. And I don't care if Ouch got its first, and all I had to do was, okay, I didn't put punctuation here, but when he says Ouch, he's talking about Ouch Was a Ghost, that podcast I mentioned earlier. And I don't care if Ouch got it first. And all I had to do was look at the comments. I'm dumb and racked my brain about it instead. So essentially he's saying that the answer was there, but he still hit his head against the wall to get it, which I think is great. I always post it, and then people will get it right, and then I'll hide it. But sometimes I'm too lazy to do that, and a bunch of people get it, and then I just let them onto the party boat. Who cares? Come on in.
I love a party boat.
Party boats are
Welcome.
great. Movies by Doug. He's another person who I think he's part of the podcast that I mentioned that does the conspiracy theories, but he does a movie podcast. Basically, just wanted us to shout him out. Go check out my movie review podcast and social media. Thank you, guys. The final one is from Jessica Fisher, who is a friend of mine and Steve's. She says, "Steal big, shop small." So
I love that.
Yep. So we
got
a real
That's
positive
really good.
communist message this week. And Matt Philp came back with another completely incorrect guess. So put the kids to bed, like I said last week. I believe it was Lion King 3 Timon fucks Pumbaa.
Oh.
Or Scar fucks Pumbaa. That was last week. This week it's I Know What You Did Last Summer, 69, My Mother. So that was his guess.
His mother, gee whiz.
I don't know.
Wow. That sounds traumatizing.
That was a lot. Thank you.
Matt is a filthy, filthy man.
He's a weird dude. I love you, Matt. Come back soon. I do like our Tenacious D episode. It was funny because he reveals at the end of the episode that he hadn't seen it in years. He just came on and talked about it. So that was great.
While like his extended family were downstairs having a dinner party.
Yeah, he was like, I had to get, I can't get away right now. We had to push it a bit. And Steve's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, he's at a dinner party right now. I'm like, what? Why did he
In his
agree
own
to
house.
this?
That sounds like a movie that I would see also.
In his
That
defense,
sounds great.
he was a last minute addition because we had a cancellation and he agreed to fill in last second. So
Nice.
Yeah, so friend of the show, Matt Phil, thank you. Do that every week. That's maybe we'll make it a segment. We'll make a 10-minute long jingle for the one line.
right.
So that's correct movie guesses. Basically,
Oh, I should also mention as a shout out because I'm going to forget at the end of the show.
Okay.
I am going to be on Trivial Debates. I don't think they do it live, but I'm going to be on it.
They
We're
do.
recording on. Okay, so we're recording on Saturday. I believe it's all Disney. Disney stuff.
Trivial Debates
So
is great. I was on it. I was a guest and a host. Are you hosting or guesting?
I'm guesting, so I had to do a bunch of homework and come up with some weirdo answers. I think I got them on a couple though. I'll tell you,
It's
I feel like I understand the game, and some people are going to come with some really sort of like cookie cutter baker's dozen
You gotta
answers,
dive deep.
and I'm
Like
going to
really
be coming
find
up
it.
from the ooze, the sewers, being like, "Did you think about this though?"
yeah, and Chris Murphy,
We'll
who
see.
produces that, friend of the show, he's going to be on later this year, and he's a good dude. The whole group of them are good. I was on their movie podcast as well called Hold Up, which you can go find. I'll repost Steve's episodes on our social media. It's going to be a funny time. I'm going to watch it live for sure. But that's fan guessing game. I just want to give everybody a quick call to action. I gotta do the sales pitch. But if you're watching this, if you're listening to this now or in the future, if you're watching live, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to it on one of our various platforms at Hey Did You See This One, you can find it there pretty much across social media. Please hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below. It helps us. The podcast is free. We're actually in the hole for about $400 at this point, and we keep it free. It'll be free forever. We'll probably do a Patreon one day, but that's going to be a down the road discussion, because we need people to I don't want to pitch Patreon to my dad, is basically my point.
Also, I'm still waiting for my paycheck, Jason. So
Listen,
add that to your bill.
tell your agent the check's in the mail. It's 1984.
Yeah,
I
Jack
put it
Burton
all up.
is
By
just-
pigeon.
yeah.
I put it all up my nose, and we're gonna have to have a lengthy court battle well into the 90s to figure it
Nice.
all out.
All right. I'm down.
And finally, we use White Bat audio music in our pre-show, so shout out to White Bat Audio. Steve also uses his content in our intro videos sometimes. He doesn't know that we use it. He's just a content creator that basically makes DMCA free music for creators to use. Just want to give him a shout out. You can find him on YouTube, White Bat Audio.
Yeah,
And
you can also purchase music from his website as well
right.
and donate.
He's great.
He has a Bandcamp and I think a Patreon as well. It's all good stuff too. It's very cool. It's very cool stuff.
it's very good, cool stuff.
Yeah.
But with that, why don't we talk about this movie, and why don't we jump into our brief history?
A brief history.
Around here, it is a time-honored tradition to give our guests the first opportunity to give us their brief history. So, Cass, why don't you talk to us about Coraline, the first time you saw it, and this and that. You've done it 62 times, so...
About that.
You know
Yeah.
the drill.
Yeah, I was a little bit late to the Coraline game. It came out 2009, and I think I watched it maybe 2011, 2012. I went to my local Jumbo Video and I rented it, and I brought it home, and I'm an only child, so it's just like me and my parents. I didn't really have anybody else
I think
to
we're gonna
watch it
need a
with.
brief history on the brief history of what Jumbo Video is.
Oh, you don't know what Jumbo Video
No,
is?
no, no,
Oh, this
I
is
do.
so London, Ontario of me. It's basically like a mom and pop ish kind of shop version of Blockbuster.
Yeah.
But it was the closest one to me. They had popcorn out front that you could eat while you were browsing for your movies. It was great. But I brought it home and I was like, hey, I got this movie, and my parents were like, that looks like a kid's movie. You watch it by yourself. And I was like, fine. So I did.
That's a real Coraline parent move.
Right. I love this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched it, and I just remember the first time that I watched it, I was so mystified by it. The poetry and the way things were shot. I was just glued to the screen the entire time. I also watched it late at night, and I had a lot of really wonderful nightmares afterwards, which is great. But one of my favorite stories of all time is Alice in Wonderland, and it really gave those vibes. So it kind of stuck with me for a long time, but I didn't watch it again for many, many years. It was just kind of one of those things that I was like, I've seen it. Now I know. I'll revisit when I can. But I rewatched it during Halloween month this past year, and it was fantastic. And then I rewatched it again a couple weeks ago, and I feel like now that I've watched it a few times over my like growing up into an adult and seeing it multiple times, I'm finding new pieces every single time I see it, and I think it's wonderful. But yeah, that's basically it. One more thing. I'm playing a new D&D campaign very, very soon, and I got a lot of inspiration from Other Mother for that character.
Oh, Other Mother.
Excited.
Oh man.
I'm gonna be scary. I'm very excited about it.
But like sweet and then scary. I kind of had a crush on other mother, and then now I don't. So.
Yep. That's fair.
I'm like, which version of her did you
Both.
have a crush on? Yeah.
When they get there.
No, not when she's like turning into a scissor-fingered freak monster.
Spider person.
Yeah.
No, that's not. Let's not get into my kinks, but that's not one of them.
No kink shaming.
No kink shaming though.
Yeah, that's it. It's super brief for me this time.
Awesome. Thanks, Cass. Steve, what's your brief history with Coraline?
I saw this on my way home from school one day. I used to have to commute to university, which was the worst, but I also worked at the movie theater. So it was on my route home, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to convince any of my friends to see this because they were all dude bros who were like, that looks like it's for babies. And I was like, well,
it's for gay babies.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I guess I'm a gay baby then. Wow, sucky, sucky. And then I went to the movie theater and watched it by myself. And you know what? Watching something like this on your own is you pay attention a little bit more. And this is like the era before everybody had a phone in their pocket that could connect to the internet, right? So you were glued. And I would go in the middle of the day when there was no one in there. So if I really wanted to, I could just do whatever I wanted. But I do like that it does feel like a Wizard of Oz or an Alice in Wonderland without you immediately drawing that connection. It's really easy to draw those connections because it's essentially the same sort of story, but it feels like it has its own identity. You're not kind of pinpointing exact parallels between the two. And even sort of the moral of the story is a little bit different than both of those, which is cool. Yeah, brief history was I saw it by myself, didn't see it again for years and years. And then I did a kind of rewatch of everything during the pandemic. And I watched it again then, loved it. And that I believe this Leica month, I think I've been pitching since the very first week I was on the show. I'm like, we should do 4 Leica movies.
And me and Kaylin were like,
yeah. Why do you want to do a gay baby movie? And I was like, wah. And I did that every month for 2 years, and we finally got it. And it turns out Jason loves every single movie we've watched so far.
Well, let's not go that far, buddy. Spoiler alert. This movie rules. Thanks, Steve. Drupal in the chat has been kind of blowing it up, so he's been saying funny things. So I want to shout out some funny things he said. Fun fact, Dove chocolate tastes way better than their soap.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
I believe that.
That's a funny thing to say. Coraline is the most left field JK LOL horror film of all time. And then kind of like what you were saying, Cass, about renting that movie and then being horrified. He says, like when my grandma bought Happy Tree Friends for her other grandkid.
Oh, no.
If you've never seen Happy
Whoops.
Tree Friends, it was a cartoon, an adult cartoon that was on G4 Tech TV in the early 2000s. And it's like, if you've ever seen the South Park episode...
where Kenny dies, it's like that.
No. Yes. I don't know if Kenny was bad. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the lore of South Park. But basically, it's a bunch of cute animals that die in just the worst, most graphic, horrible ways.
It's like Itchy and Scratchy, but it's like its own show kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like they're just dying horribly and making funny noises and then
So
horrifying
brutal.
noises.
Exactly. I thought I'd bring that up because like my brief history is very brief. I've only seen it this week. I watched it basically today. It was like The Missing Link last week where I tried to start watching it on Tuesday and I couldn't find the brain groove for it, but then today I just ate it up, just consumed the rest of it. And I will say that I do remember when this movie came out getting this and Corpse Bride confused. That might be the case for a lot of people who don't who aren't in the know.
I love Corpse Bride.
Corpse Bride, I remember not liking Corpse Bride then because I wanted it to literally be Nightmare Before Christmas, but I feel like I'd appreciate that movie a lot now. And Coraline exceeded my expectations by quite a bit because I had watched a bunch of like TikToks. I think, Cass, one of the last times you were on, we like talked about it briefly because we were going to have you on for this. And I thought it was a completely different thing. And it turned out to be the allegory for like death and stuff that we'll kind of get into wasn't as apparent. And it's more of Neil Gaiman. The movie is more of Neil Gaiman's Alice in Wonderland. Is kind of what it ended up being more of. We're obviously going to drill down real deep because I wrote like 5 pages of notes.
Nice. I have my 3. I got 3 whole pages like every time.
So buckle in. This is going to be a long episode. We're probably going to push 11 o'clock tonight easily. And if we go longer than that, it's fine. This is a very special movie. And I think it's a very special movie for a lot of people. And my body is ready to talk about it because they jammed so much content into an hour and 40 minutes. I've never seen anything like this.
It's also one of those movies you can dissect like every frame.
Exactly.
Every frame. Frame by frame.
Frame by frame.
Ooh, slow down.
This one?
Take a deep breath.
This one?
And take things frame by frame.
He said the title of the movie.
He said the title of the podcast in the podcast.
Hey, you see this one? Heavy Raincoat or whatever you say in that I always perk up for.
You don't think unique technique? Every time I hear that, I go unique New York.
Unique New York. Unique New York.
That's fantastic. But with that, we can move over to our next segment, and that's Director Talk.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
This is, of course, the segment of the show where we basically just break down the director.
This is the first week where we actually have a lot to talk about.
Because we haven't talked about Henry Selick since, I believe, really, Tim was on. Speaking of Tim in the chat. Welcome to the chat. Tim and Drupal in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, and people of all ages and human beings around the world. The thing that I love about Henry Selick is that his work is so varied, but he's almost like the Tim Burton that never was, I could say.
I think he was. He was
literally
the thing that I love about Henry Selick is that he looks like one of his own creations. If you look him up,
it's true.
He looks like a big, tall skeleton man. Yeah, he's like a real life Jack Skellington.
Freaky looking boy. But I'm going to take a back seat to this because I feel like you guys know a lot more. And if people interject in the chat, I'll sort of read that out. So I know that there's a lot of stuff about this. We were saying in the pre-show, where I was saying, I thought it was incorrect that on the poster it says directed by the same director as Nightmare Before Christmas, thinking that Tim Burton directed that because in my head Tim Burton director, but that was sort of his creation. That he went on to have a famous stop motion film director Henry Selick. Sort of
also marketing, right? Tim Burton was already so known, so it's like, well, yeah, of course we're gonna also make sure Tim's name is like high up on here for Nightmare to make sure that also sells, and then why not stick it on for Coraline too?
Yeah, I brought it up last week briefly, but the studio asked Henry Selick, can we put Tim Burton's Coraline on this to help sell? And Henry Selick was like, yeah, but you have to ask Tim Burton, not me. I don't have the power to do that. You've got to ask Tim Burton. I think they did that for a lot of his projects because they were friends and like he could potentially just ask him. But like Tim Burton is like, no, this is your project, man. Like you need to get the credit for this. And Tim Burton did have a lot of input to The Nightmare Before Christmas
Yeah, a lot
visually,
of like
and
sketches and like the
yeah.
poem itself that it's like based on was written by Tim. And
Yeah, and so it made sense for them to do that. And Tim Burton again was like a household name, or becoming at least a household name. He'd already done all the Batman movies and
Mars
Pee-wee's and
Attacks.
Mars Attacks was after Nightmare, but like
Was it?
yeah.
Whoa,
Uh,
93
timeline.
and then 96, I think, or 92,
Crazy.
90.
I think it came
Wow,
out in like
Nightmare's old.
98, I believe, was Mars Attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but Henry Selick kind of went dark for a while. Like he worked on stuff here and there, but directing wise, he made James and the Giant Peach and Monkey Bone. James and the Giant Peach, people have nostalgic connection to it. I personally loved it a lot, but I owned it. I didn't own it on VHS or anything, so I saw it in the theaters once. And if you didn't have it on VHS, you weren't really watching it regularly. And for some reason, I think it was the time in my life where like me and my sister had to agree on a movie to rent. And I would be like, let's get this. And my sister was like, no, let's get this. And then I'd be like, okay, fine. And I'd put Peach back.
So you
Uh,
always lost that battle where it
well, I
was
think
like
my
a
sister was
50-50?
like,
That's tough.
I think she was legitimately scared of James and the Giant Peach when we watched it. So
That's
my
fair.
parents
It was
were
one of
like,
my favorite books as a kid, and I remember vividly. It's a fucked up like kids book,
It's a lot.
and it's a
but the thing
messed
is,
up
my sister
movie.
liked The Nightmare Before Christmas, but she was more scared of Peach. I think that Peach does have a pretty creepy vibe to it, and it's kind of gross. Uh, they're inside of a
Yeah.
peach and they're using it for everything. It's
for
kind of,
everything,
it is
for
kind
food,
of,
for other things. Also,
Uh,
Dribble in the chat says, plus little sisters always win, and older sisters just take. I don't have either of those things.
Only
and then-
child over here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
only
Yeah.
child as well.
even now, like you bring up James and the Giant Peach, and a lot of people know what it is, but if you ask them any questions about it directly, they're like, I don't remember though. I saw it when I was 5, but I don't remember anything about it other than they're in a peach, I think. And even I watched it recently, and I couldn't remember the majority of it.
There's
I
like
thought that
a
I thought that they
ladybug,
were
a
like
worm,
cartoons
and the pit.
immediately. They're
Like-
like half the movie. He's a real boy running around with his disgusting mean ants. It's like a real sort of Cinderella type story, and it's you look at it and you're like, I thought that this movie was all stop frame, but no, the majority of it is not stop frame. And if you look into it a little bit further, they wanted to do sort of a Roger Rabbit thing where he was always a real boy interacting with these stop frame puppets. But they just couldn't find a way budget wise to do it. So they just made it's like as soon as he gets in the peach, he's also a puppet, and we're gonna just maybe have a little bit at the end. And then Monkey Bone. We all know Monkey Bone, right? Brendan Fraser.
You just told me about it today,
Yeah, I know.
Stephen. I don't know.
I'm aware of it, but I
It
remember
was on TV quite a
Yeah.
bit when I was like a teenager, so I have seen it a few times. But that's another one that's almost too weird even for me, and I love weird stuff. But it's kind of like horny, and you're not really sure who the audience is. You're like, it looks like it should be for kids at times, but then it's really not the majority of the time. Monkey Bone is essentially a little monkey who is super duper horny.
No, I do know what you're talking about. Now that you've said it,
You're
I'm
like,
like,
horny
oh, it's all
monkey. Wait a
coming
minute.
back. I
A
know
stop
that.
frame horny monkey? I do remember this.
Yeah,
Um,
that's very funny.
I remember there's a part in it where like they go to hell and they're meeting all these celebrities, and like Stephen King is down there, but he's like in the form of Cujo from the movie, the book Cujo. It's so strange. Maybe we'll do it on this show one day if we do like a pure Selick month. But then after Monkey Bone, yeah, he didn't really make anything big.
I'd like
I'm
to
sure he was
point out
working, but
one thing though that you didn't mention because it kind of doesn't matter, but I am a fan of the band Fishbone, and he directed the music video for Party at Ground Zero, which is a great song, and I'm just learning that he directed that music video back in 1985, the year I was born.
well, I didn't know
Wow.
that.
I'm looking at his
Learning.
IMDb. I know, I just I wanted
Oh,
to
right,
interject
yeah.
Well,
that.
Jason, actually, if you
I see
have
it
that
here.
pulled up, because I don't have my internet, my keyboard's too far away from me. I know that Leica Studios was contracted out for Corpse Bride, which is also Tim Burton. Was Henry Selick involved in that?
Let me see here.
no?
He I don't see him.
He might have been like a producer or something, but
He's
Maybe.
not listed as animation department. He's not listed as a writer,
no.
and
Okay.
he's not.
Yeah, I mean, he. This is the only Leica project that he's worked on, so
Yeah,
he's not. He,
I was wondering if there was any like weird connection in there that like
yeah,
maybe he was part of it too.
I'm wondering if like maybe what's his name, Jason Knight, or is it Jason Knight? The guy who like is the CEO of
Yeah.
Leica. I'm wondering
Robert,
if
wasn't it like Robert Knight? Sorry.
it's something Knight. I
Yeah.
can't remember his last name. Might be Christopher Knight. Who gives a shit? Part of me thinks that he likes to get very involved, right? Because it's his studio, he's the CEO, he has a lot at stake, but he's also like a creative dude. So
Yeah.
I think that Henry Selick is one of those guys that's like, leave me alone and let me work on this and never
I love those people.
Well, I mean, that is, I think, why he liked Tim Burton so much is because he was like, Tim just lets me do what I want, and then he leaves, and then he comes in and he defends me from the studios. Disney is
Yeah.
coming at me, and he's like, Tim jumps in the way and says, no, he's gonna do it the way he wants to do it, which is why The Nightmare Before Christmas is the way it is, right? Like that is not a traditional Disney movie in any capacity.
Also, even to like have Coraline itself as a movie greenlit by a studio, like that must have taken a lot because this movie is so much in one little like short kind of children's movie that like
Yeah.
how do you get that greenlit? You get Tim Burton to
Yeah.
say, okay, let's go.
But it does fit into like a mold, though. If you look at
Absolutely.
Paranorman and The Missing Link, and we'll talk about Kubo next week, but they
I'm so
all
excited to watch you
are.
guys talk about that movie. I just
They're-
thought it was so
These
good.
movies, these four movies, I feel like go together so well. Like, the way that we have done them makes a lot of sense to my brain for some reason, because even though this movie came up before Paranorman, I feel like it's important to watch Paranorman first to go back to this movie. Is kind of, I'll talk about it more in the body, but that's sort of my head canon now. Is this movie is after those or something.
Cool.
Also, I'll play exactly how much of the Fishbone Party at Ground Zero that I can play. Music video directed by Henry Selick. That's it.
Nice.
All right. Is it? I
Beautiful.
assume
That's
it's
a
like
good song.
I assume it's like a stop frame animated thing, right?
Well,
Like,
I
is
mean,
it?
I'm going to pause the music and just look at it for a second and describe to you what I'm seeing. So it's essentially like, oh no, it's like live action, but it's like real weird. There's like people chasing a guy in what looks like kind of like an alien, kind of like a parody of like Alien from Aliens, like a xenomorph. And then they get into an elevator here, and now the elevator. Okay, now the guy's playing his guitar.
But are they stop
instruments.
frame? That's
No.
the question I have.
No.
Okay.
It's just wacky. It's just It's
Okay.
just crazy. It's like that music video that I sent mine in your Cam's chat that time, where you were like, "This is the greatest thing you've ever sent to me." You might not even remember what that was now, but
It was probably the greatest thing though.
it was very good.
But I mean, also Jason sends me a lot of shit that I don't care about.
Yeah.
So.
And you're like, that's the best. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I love it when Steve. That's high praise for Steve because we have different tastes in a lot of things. But that's why this podcast works so well, because we're having a conversation that's constructive, and we're both learning from each other. Me more so than
Everybody's opinions matter.
It's true.
Jason, I have a question for you.
Absolutely, I'll answer
Because
it.
a while ago we were talking about like animated movies and like movies made for kids, and I remember having a conversation with you and you were like, I don't know, I never really got into them because I thought they were for kids or whatever. Going through this month, how do you feel now about watching movies like this?
I'm never gonna make a blanket statement like that again.
Never do.
I'm just gonna watch the recommended movies and not have an opinion before I watch them. I would never watch these four movies if Steve hadn't, let's say, bugged me for months and months and months. And
But I mean, I bugged you for a reason because I knew that you would like them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to recommend something to you if I know you're not going to like it.
And I feel like I was dismissive even the night that I was over and we were having drinks and you were like, watch this part of this movie for Missing Link. And I feel like even then I dismissed it because I didn't know what it was. It was just that opening sequence of them hunting Loch Ness.
But it's like that opening sequence has enough charm and funniness to it. And obviously it's really beautiful to look at that I'm like, maybe I'll be able to convince him this way. And that was the moment you agreed to do the month. So
I didn't dislike it. I'll say that. And what I've learned, this movie especially felt like you could pull 10 minutes of any 10 minutes out of this movie and put it up for like a short film festival, and it would work.
Yep.
Because of
it would also be intriguing enough that you would want to watch the rest of it.
Exactly. So I'll say that about this. I apologize for making Blake. I don't.
Oh, I know you. I know you're open-minded. So it was like, it wasn't necessarily blanket statement. I was just like interested to see how you feel now. Like, that's really cool.
I've been learning a lot about film and movies over the last 3 years too, right? So I'm stunted in a lot of ways when it comes to
We've watched a lot of crap.
We've watched a lot of crap. We've watched a lot of good stuff. Our podcast has gone through a lot of different phases. And
sometimes the crap is fun to talk about, though. Remember He-Man?
Yeah, I hate that movie, but I would have loved it.
The episode was funny.
The episode was funny, and I would have loved that movie when I was a kid. To keep on to the just we'll get into it in a sec here, but to keep on to the director thing, I just want to say that, so you guys said this movie started as a poem, then Neil Gaiman took it and made it into a graphic novel, and then Henry Selick and Laika turned it into the film. And then
was it a poem? I think you're thinking of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas was a poem written by Tim Burton. This one was just from my understanding. I think it's actually based off of like some old Polish folklore, but it's a Neil Gaiman book.
It's a Neil Gaiman graphic novel.
And then into this, yeah.
I just want to mention, since we are on Twitch and we always somehow relate things back to video games, there's a friggin' Coraline video game, and the third act,
I think it's for the Nintendo DS,
something like that, right? And then the third act of this movie has like I've never played the game, obviously, but like it felt like they almost had the intention of making a game because of how MacGuffin-y and go get the 3 things and then fight the final boss the third act feels. So I didn't do any research on it because it doesn't matter. It's probably just a shovelware game.
I listened to another podcast where
Steve
they did play
to
the
another podcast. Okay, I want to hear about
apparently
this.
It's like the worst thing ever. Like, you know when he tells her to go count all the windows, you have to actually do that in the game, and it's like, that doesn't sound fun. And according to the podcast, it was not fun. It's like you got to go find all the windows. Yeah.
But I just imagine a mini game where you're looking through the ring at stuff, which might have been cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was also a handheld game in 2009, so it probably wasn't that great.
Make that game 10 years later when augmented reality exists and you can use the 3DS to
wait till you watch Kubo. I'm shocked that doesn't have a video game, because it is basically
it's
just
incredible.
A video game.
It looks beautiful. Yeah, it would be amazing as a video game.
I'm a victim of overhype as it is already, but that's fine. Do you guys have anything else to add about your old boy Henry Selick?
I mean, I would like to do Wendell and Wild on the show at some point. That's the last movie that he made, and I don't know if he has anything coming down the pike, but I hope that he does have something going on, rattling around on that old skeleton skull of his.
I trust his brain with things like this. I want to see.
I imagine when he rattles his head, it sounds like the dice that Oogie Boogie rolls inside the.
I like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he also has a crazy journey. If you are interested in it, just look him up and read about it, because we could talk about that for 3 hours rather than specifically this movie. But we've talked about him multiple times, and this is the first time we've ever done a movie that he directed. The very first episode Tim was on, we talked about Henry Selick for like 25 minutes. So
yeah,
if you're interested, you can go back to Mark Twain's flying machine that goes to hell. That goes to electrified nightmare machine from hell. He worked on that.
Yeah,
and we talk about it for a little while.
It sucks, but it's one of those like we got a lot out of it. Claymation, full on stop motion clay to a fault almost.
That was, yeah, and I can't believe how much of a fine tooth comb I went through that movie with, because I'm like, I would never want to watch that again. But fun to talk about. I don't have anything else to add about Henry Selick other than that he's cool, and I wish that he could make a movie every year, but unfortunately his movies take fucking 7 years to make.
Well, with that, what do you say that we undress the plot and get to the body of the episode?
my God.
Ho, ho, ho! Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
Jeez. I thought that sound bite was already sexual enough. I didn't know you had to sexualize the sexy
We had hands.
quote.
Everybody's horny now, so let's get real into it.
I mean, this is kind of a weirdly horny movie at times.
So fucking weird.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the burlesque girls. We'll get there.
Space Cadet Tim in the chat said Mark Twain and his kidnapped children friends, which is also accurate.
Yeah.
But this is, of course, the body of the episode where I'm going to run down the plot. Basically, I don't know. I wrote so much for this one that I might have to summarize multiple lines of plot. I'll do my best, but we're just going to talk pretty much ad nauseum about the movie Coraline. I'll start us off. Week 3 of Laika. Here we go. Oh, it's Dakota Fanning and Teri Hatcher. Weird. The cast for this
I always
movie,
forget that Dakota Fanning is playing Coraline.
and she's like a
that
kid
always shocks
still.
me. Yeah, she's great. Very talented.
And also it has Keith David and Ian McShane, which kicked my head when I was like,
both friends of the show, both future guests.
yeah, both my dads.
I wish.
I can't
What a
remember
great life would that be if those were your two dads?
the name of the woman who voices Other Mother, but I'm like, oh yeah, she's in Desperate Housewives.
She's also
That's
in
crazy.
Lois and Clark.
Whoa.
Yeah, Teri Hatcher. Also the Snap and Crackle or Snap and Foreboding. What are the old ladies' names? Snitch and,
Spink and
Spink and Spank.
for Broken.
I wrote it down
Misconception.
somewhere. I wrote it down
Why can't I
somewhere. My
remember?
notes are a
I wrote
mess.
it down so many times.
Spink Enforceable.
Forcible. They're one of the absolutely fabulous ladies. I think absolutely is.
Oops. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry.
What's happening? Oh,
He disappeared through the door. He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. He's going to other Toronto.
Aw,
We get a
could be fun.
other Toronto sounds like if it's well
Listen, we're in Gotham right now. Maybe Other Toronto is nice.
is Metropolis. Mississauga is Metropolis. Ooh.
Yeah.
Hamilton is Metropolis. It is not.
It is not.
It is not.
But love our people listening from Hamilton. It's not your fault.
I don't love you if you're listening from Hamilton.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Hamilton is to Toronto as Dartmouth is to Halifax.
Wow, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
I trust you.
Somebody will know what it means. Steve went to get the button eyes. Oh.
Incredible.
He must have ordered beer or food or something, and it's at the door. So
Maybe.
I'll just get through some of this because if I can get through it and you'll listen, but Steve will just interject. So let me get through.
I
this
already
first
have
bit.
interjections
No,
if you're
son
going
of
through
a-
just the opening credits itself.
I said son of a bitch. I wasn't calling you. Okay. Opening credits is a freaky doll maker person with steak needles. Oh,
Fake needles.
steak needles. With needle hands or like scissors making a doll. Oh my God, Neil Gaiman and Henry Selick. I feel like I knew that before I went into this movie. Why was I shocked? This is like an allegory for death or something, as I recall. Like a morgue for dolls or something. Wrong.
Well, interestingly enough, this opening credit scene is so cool to me and I love it so much. It gives me mad Edward Scissorhands vibes because of the creator in Edward Scissorhands. Amazing. But they used, instead of a sewing kit for those hands remaking that doll, they used embalming tools.
Yes, that's what it was.
Which is very, very cool and immediately creepy, and I don't like it. But I like the idea of creator giving life to something a la Frankenstein. It's very nice.
So
Nice touch.
a bit of a spoiler, but that's where I thought this movie was going. But they don't get to the point of actually turning her into an otherworld being. But I feel like because of this opening scene, it's implied that when you're turned into the otherworld being, and they do. You see it later with the mouse when it turns from like the cartoon mouse back
Mouse
into
to
a
the
real rat, and the sand falls out of it. You know, and now I'm just realizing that this opening sequence is her creating the doll that spies but like
It's very much the spy. Well,
yeah.
the doll is in all of the visions that we see later in the movie where Coraline's in the other world and then wakes up. Every single time she goes to bed, other mother is sitting in that chair, and when she wakes up, it's just the doll, um, which is very cool. But I also do think because of the way this movie goes, and I won't get too much into it now, with the ghosts of the other children and things like that, it makes sense why maybe the embalming and all of that does tie in. It's just that Coraline says, not for me. I'm going to hard pass on that.
Bye.
Bye.
The embalming process, I think, was also close to like when they would mummify people, where she's stuffing like sand and some sort of a it looked like a fabric or something.
Yeah, like stuffing.
Yeah.
Like little like cotton pieces. Well, I mean, like even in this is morbid and I don't know why I know this, but even in normal person embalming, there's a lot of things that go into creating shapes and faces and different body parts depending on death or whatever to make sure that people look like their loved ones would like to look them like.
I watched 6 Feet Under literally like at the end of the year, all the way through in a very short period of time. And this one character, he's very good at making the bodies look realistic no matter what has happened to them. And there's a special kind of like plasticine that they use.
Yeah, it's like a clay.
It's like a clay that you can reshape parts or reshape anyway. Let's not go too gross, but
just dive right in there.
This opening sequence I was captivated by. I couldn't believe how much time and effort that goes into like one 5-second moment, and everything looks so beautiful. I think this is Laika's like first. There's Box Trolls before this, or is this their first movie?
No, this is the first one. 2009. Box Trolls is after Paranorman.
Yeah. So my first note for this is that I wrote animation isn't as fluid, but still looks fantastic. It actually looks less like CGI than the newer movies.
Which I really like for this movie specifically. I watched a double feature of Kubo and then this movie the other week with my friends. And it was really, really interesting, the fact that this was an earlier movie of theirs, but I like that it's choppy. It adds to like the kind of unsettling creepiness of it. I find it great.
I was mentioning to Madison when I was watching Paranorman, or she walked into the room and she was like, why are you doing like a CGI feature? And I was like, no. Look at it closer.
This is like, puppets, man.
She's like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it's stop frame, and then you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that was sort of my like, this is a movie for babies problem, is I couldn't get over that. But you have to actually watch the movies, and then see the messages on top of that to really get why they're important. And it's not like you're watching some, action movie for adults or horror movie or a raunchy comedy, like things that are for adults typically. These movies you watch to like get a message out of and like learn something about yourself.
Storytelling to the nines, like it is, yeah.
And there's so many twists and turns, and I've said this about the last 2 episodes. This one has it in spades as well. It feels like they're making the movie as they go along, because it's stop motion, but also they can make these decisions on the fly because it's such a niche, weird thing that they don't have to conform to the regular standards. Like, they're not just putting out some cookie cutter action movie.
No.
They're making
everything has to be detailed because every single piece is handcrafted. So every frame, every shot, every motion is very much on purpose, which is why I love diving into this kind of media. It's very cool.
Like even the storytelling, it's not cookie cutter. You can make stop motion cookie cutter movies, but like, why go through the effort of doing that?
Well, when you're telling a story that's very ethereal and otherworldly, dreamlike, you are doing all these things that requires a lot of meticulous planning to achieve. But then you look at what they're doing in this particular story, where there is all this sort of reflection, and we're going to have twisted versions of the same things, or really bright versions of mundane things, or creepy versions of beautiful things. And a lot of the time, the creepy stuff in this movie is in the real world, or like the drab and macabre is what reality is, you know, that the void of color, and the most color you see really is Coraline's outfits, her jacket, the gloves that she wants to buy.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else is almost desaturated and sapped of life and color. And
Gray.
yeah, and like her parents both look like these muted
So tired.
shells, and they're just so sleepy. Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I really
but
like
the
this movie too because sorry, I cut you off. I'm
That's
just gonna
okay.
say it really quickly before I forget. This movie is very much calls to Pan's Labyrinth for me, which is
Mm-hmm.
also very similar and one of my favorite movies of all time, but of like seeing dream world that is like very whimsical, lots of color, and then very much the opposite with horrible things happening in like a dark, dingy kind
Yeah.
of lighting. It's very
But
cool. I like
one
it.
thing that I like in this is like even when the world turns horrifying, it's still super sapped in color and oversaturated, and like the colors become a little bit more monochromatic, but they're still vivid and beautiful, but they're also now scary.
They
Yeah.
Uh
It's uncomfortable to like
yeah.
have that contrast so quickly. You're like, oh, that also doesn't feel right.
They do almost the opposite of that too at one point, where they show that basically the same two scenes, the same two areas of the nightmare world, where when she first goes there, it seems like this whimsical wonderland place, but she goes through the same place like after knowing, sort of seeing behind the scenes,
Seeing webs and dirt and
but
grime,
not
like
even
through this.
no, I don't mean through the tunnel. When she goes through the garden the second time, she's
Oh
seeing
yeah,
basically the same things, but now she knows that there's this horrible side to it. And I loved the
It's all
ability.
attacking her. Like
They're
these
attacking
fly
her.
traps that are like
Those hearts.
violet, but like this like glowing violet, like almost neon.
The snapdragons are literally attacking her at that
snapdragons.
point.
Yeah. But
Oh,
then
so good.
when she removes the life from those things, right? When she wins in her challenge, they're sapped of all color. They become black and white, like
Yeah,
gray
that part of
scale.
the dimension, created dimension, is gone.
Yeah.
It basically dies, but then it looks more akin to the real world, which is kind
Yeah,
of sad when you think about it. You're
it
like, oh
is.
man, when
This
when
whole
she
movie is
kills something in this,
escapism, right? So, like, of course, you want to escape into something colorful and lovely, but like, it is a reflection of reality.
yeah.
Reality isn't always lovely.
So Coraline builds. We meet Coraline for the first time. She's running out to play. She's trying to find this well. She builds a water stick. What do they call a tuning?
Dowsing rod.
A dowsing rod.
That was my nickname in high school.
Heyo.
Hey, dowsing
Hey,
rod.
dowsing rod. What'd you find with the water?
I don't
you
think I
freaking
want to know the
nerd?
background of
That's
that.
my new joke that I do every week. Anytime somebody says
That's
something
my
that sounds
nickname.
remotely weird. I can't remember what it was last week, but it sounded gross. Stank on top, I think was
Yeah,
what
that's what
it
they called me
was.
in high
That's what
school.
they called me.
Yeah, that's what they
Um,
called me in high school. Stank on top.
So she builds that. She's got the cat following her at that point. Um, the cat catches up to her, and she's looking for a while, as I mentioned. And a boy, or we don't know if it's a boy. I thought that there was going to be a huge twist with Wybie,
YB. Yeah.
but there isn't really. He's just sort of her. I think it's a Neil Gaiman self-insert, is what I kind of gathered from this character. But he's sort of the sidekick or the buddy that sort of comes in at the clutch moments, and it's sort of the
He's Irving
very
the
tragic.
explainer. He's like the
Yeah.
voice of reason. He's the one that explains things to her when they need to be explained,
Yeah,
right?
the
He's got the
soothsayer.
knowledge with like his grandma being the landlady and like knowing kind of mystical weird things
Yeah.
about the plot of land and what
And
happens there.
yeah, for the first, 4 times you meet him, he's basically just injecting more mystery into this already mysterious happening. Except, he's also revealing a little bit more information. So the world is growing around you in this larger
Mm-hmm.
bubble, but it's not becoming less mysterious. It's only becoming more
More.
mysterious. And he seems, he's kind of goofy. He's
I
odd
love the way
looking.
he's animated.
Yeah,
I
and
love the
he's
way
also
he
very
moves.
cute. Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
cool.
He's like
Character choice.
he's like the only character model in the entire movie that you're like, oh, what a cutie pie. Even
But also-
Coraline, you're like, this little fucking bitch. Like, fuck.
Actually, Coraline remember Anna Banana? Remember that show?
Yeah.
No, is that what it was called? The one where it was like, it was like
Paper People, Angela Anaconda.
Angela Anaconda, not Anna
I
Banana.
thought you were going to say Pippi Longstocking.
I also love Pippi Longstocking.
Yeah,
Why?
but Angela Anaconda had blue hair. Yeah. Oh,
this is on purpose.
Yeah. It's not, I assume.
Oh, I hated Angela Anaconda.
I know most people
loved
did.
it, but it's like terrifying, and I loved it.
I was
just
also
like the
too
animation
old
style.
for that. I think was what it was.
Keep forgetting that I'm younger than you. That's my bad.
Yeah, but like I'm older, and I remember I hated. The
I mean,
show,
I wasn't
but
too old. I was just, you know what it was?
remember
Is that
vividly.
I did not like that animation style because I was like,
It's a lot.
It's not animation to me. This is like it's like South Park basically, where they cut out faces and arms and stuff and move them around sideways, and it didn't feel like real animation to me.
Some of the people that worked on that worked on reboots, so maybe you have to reevaluate.
I'm not saying that I was correct.
Listen.
At the tender age of 12 years old or whatever.
Right after Wybie's introduced.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Pretty easy week for that
Wow.
one. Every time they say her name. But the first time it's said is 6 minutes and 68 seconds.
That almost seems like a long time for a movie that is
about
a person named Coraline. Yeah,
it's possible.
But then it's also said incorrectly 100 times throughout the movie.
I love that though. I actually wanted to comment on this with like specifically Coraline. Her name is Coraline, and it's reiterated so many times in this movie that nobody listens to her.
Yeah.
Nobody listens to her. They're like, Caroline, don't care. Whatever, I'm right. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
It's my name.
It's Coraline.
It's not that hard.
It's not like it's not a real name that exists. It's not
but also,
common, but...
YB doesn't get it wrong. Once she corrects him once, he doesn't mess it up again.
Well, he calls her Jonesy for the rest of the movie.
Jonesy, yeah.
That's true. So he doesn't. So I'm technically correct.
You're technically also incorrect.
Yeah. I mean, but he also says an interesting thing, which is like mundane names lead to mundane lives, or something along those lines. Or if you have a mundane life, you're being set up by your mundane name or whatever.
Yeah.
Which made me feel terrible about myself, but whatever.
I've got a name that died in 1989, so.
Yeah, it was killed by a machete at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, it was also killed by a kid named Jaxler.
Jaxler? Yeah, there were so many Jaxlers in the 90s.
With 2 X's.
Yeah.
Jaxler.
Yeah. My son's name is Jaxler.
Jaxler. I really liked that she mentioned she's from Michigan, and YB's like, oh, a Michigan water wand. And then she's
a water witch.
She's a water witch, and she's holding the stick. And he's like, also, you're going to want to drop that stick because it's poison oak.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Also, this is our introduction scene 2 of The Well, which we'll see at the end of the movie. I also wanted to just touch on this scene really quickly. I really like that this particular movie does a great thing where you introduce 2 children characters that meet for the first time, and they don't just like each other. Like, I love that Coraline is just a bit of a brat about it. She's like, ew,
she's kind of a bully.
You.
Yeah,
Get away from me.
I
love that. That's so real.
Even though he's clearly awesome, he's got a...
Oh, he's great.
He's got a Sam Fisher mask on with the 3
he's so
camera
cool.
things. I thought, so, did I mention this already? I thought that there was going to be a twist with him, but I thought he was just going to be like dead the whole time or something. Because in my head, Steve, I was mentioning that I thought that this whole thing was going to have all these like more morbid twists and turns. I didn't realize it was like kind of like an Alice in Wonderland. I thought that that opening sequence, which is what I've seen all the TikTok content about and what it means, that it continued through the movie. But that
the only real connection I think is with the ghost children themselves. I think that YB was probably like very much close to being that, but he avoided that house as much as he could, and he was still part of the story.
Which he talks about in this. He's like, I'm surprised they let your family move in there because kids aren't typically allowed in there.
Yeah, my grandma wouldn't allow it.
My grandmother wouldn't.
Too many children went missing.
Yeah, including her sister.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so Coraline, we meet Coraline's mom. She doesn't pay attention to her. She's buried in her work. And the parents are plant journalists. And then that we find that...
Who hate gardening, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. The mom hates mud, and the dad is just like lost in his work to the point that I don't even know... This job to me is so weird. This whole story arc about them was so weird to me because I guess you could replace the plant thing with anybody, but it works because
It's just
they
an
have
author
this
moment,
canon.
right?
I think what it is was meant to represent is that there are people who could have what would seem to be a dream job and would still be completely buried and ground down by their work to the point that it becomes nothing more than work. And
Yeah.
I assume that these
They
two people
used to love
probably
it.
loved gardening, but
Yeah.
because now it is their day in, day out bread and butter, it's become work.
A
And
job.
I
And
think
also
that's like,
Coraline reflects that too. Like she loves being outside. She like talks about like, oh, we can go garden, we can do these things. And her mom's like, I'm too busy with work about that thing to
yeah,
do
to
anything
do
that
the
I
thing
like.
that is technically my job.
Yeah.
And, dad is upstairs just typing away
His neck
about,
is too long.
I mean, everyone's necks are too long eventually at some point in this movie.
True.
But yeah, it's it's basically just people being people, which is like you could have your dream job, but at the end of the day, it's your job, and you're probably going to end up hating it at some point
That's why
unless you can
people
find a way to re-inject joy into it,
That's why people say like, you want to be a video game player on Twitch full time or a game tester full time. It'll suck the life out of playing video games. I firsthand, I went to pro wrestling training school, right?
I love that.
Go
on.
It sucked the fun out of wrestling because I learned exactly how a wrestling match is made up.
He learned how the sausage was made, you know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying over here?
It was blood, sweat, and tears. Jason R. Phillips was blood, sweat, and tears.
So for a long time, it took the fun out of watching wrestling, right? I almost had to like forget how a wrestling match, but I still see it. Like I'm not like I don't forget stuff.
There was a time where when I was in school where even movies were like they became overly analytical to me, where I would be like, I can't enjoy movies anymore without like micro dissecting everything, and like I wonder how they accomplished this shot, and then I would think about it, and then or I would like see a light on the side of someone's face, and I'd be like technically calculating where the light is on the outside of it, the camera is, and how many lights are there to accomplish. And you're just like, why am I doing this? I'm not even observing what these people are talking about.
True, and you bring that to this show, which is good. But I could see that being your thing with sound design is almost a detriment to your enjoying of film because
but it can make
enhance
so much better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I find something that has
moment.
extremely good sound, I watched the last voyage of the Demeter the other day, and the movie's not that great. It's kind of boring. The opening is pretty good, and then it becomes a slog. But one thing that I will say is that the sound design of that movie is dope. I did wear headphones while I was watching it, but it made me enjoy a pretty mundane and forgettable and kind of boring movie a little bit more than I would have had I not been appreciative of the sound design of like creaking wood and ropes crackling and stuff.
Yeah. It's the same with acting too, right? I think like any passion, like I watch things and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like I get it. Performance, either good or bad, obviously still biased. But then when you watch someone who really knows the craft, you're like, whoa, I see what you're doing.
This is
and
why
you
Daniel
are
Day-Lewis
nailing
only
it.
makes one movie every 10 years.
It's very cool to watch, but it can take you out if you know a little too much.
Just as a last note about that, watching Oz recently and knowing what good acting is versus bad acting, some of the acting on that is like I lose myself in the scene, and then some actor of the week will come on for their bit, and I'm like, ugh.
Some day player
out of it.
Just, excuse me, you call this mashed potatoes?
What the freaking frick over here? Like that kind of acting.
Oh, I didn't know I was starring in that.
It was Stephen Waters.
Hey, what's it coming to go over here? The freaking bugaboo. No. At any rate.
Yeah, that's exactly how it's
So I just wanted to mention that Wybie leaves a doll for Coraline that we'll get to in a minute. We meet the dad, which you guys kind of mentioned. The dad is similar to the mom, but he's more loving. He's more like jokey with Coraline. I like their relationship better. I have a whole thing to say about the mom at the end of the movie, so look out for that. He's like, she's bored out of her tree. The mom's like, she's like, it's going to be the perfect day to go out and play. It's raining, which is like, kind of macabre and like kind of like I get this. She's kind of like Lydia from Ghostbusters or from Beetlejuice. If like Lydia also didn't just like love being by herself and being just dark about everything. It's like if Lydia like and Beetlejuice went on a colorful adventures instead of Beetlejuice being like, hey, you know what I mean, the whole time. It's like she would get it. But the thing is
Isn't that Ernest's line? Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
I think,
know what I mean?
Beetlejuice does know what I mean as well, doesn't he?
Maybe they're the same person. Maybe Beetlejuice is the ghost of Ernest.
Crossover.
This is Jim Varney's ghost. That's hilarious to me, actually. The dad, yeah. So he's basically like, you know what? Let's play a fun game. When you go count all the windows.
Is it a fun game or is it a side quest? Get out of my hair. I'm busy. Go do something fun for yourself.
Because we get
That's a go collect the windows for me.
So negligent.
Yeah.
We get a.
But I mean, I don't know. Have you ever had to like none of us have children?
No.
Have you ever had to take care of kids for an extended period of time?
Fuck no.
No.
I was a camp counselor for 5
you're
years.
really nice and go back to your parents. You've done great.
I've said this on the pod before. I was a camp counselor for 5 years.
I believe that.
And there are times in the day where you don't have stuff scheduled to do, and there'll be like these pockets of nothingness. And the kids want to be like your best friend, right?
Of course.
But really, you're just like, I need like 5 minutes to just drink my water and leave me the fuck. So you create.
Kids don't get that, right? Like that's the like how trauma can also be like accidentally kind of given to people. It's like it's not intentional. I'm not trying to ignore you. I just need a second. And they're like, you hate me forever. Okay.
But I think
that'll stick in my brain for the rest of my
Coraline's
life.
at the age where she understands when she's being given a bullshit task, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
she calls it out immediately.
You know that dad at some point probably gave her fun tasks and she was probably over enthusiastic to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because of her relationship with her dad too, she recognizes that he's at least not saying no to everything.
Yeah, he's
much warmer.
using, but it seems like he's using an old tactic that probably worked, right? Where he'd be like, okay, so this is a 150-year-old house. Go count all the blue windows or whatever. But this is how I would deal with this in those moments. I'd be like, all right, I have a very important mission for you. I need you to find me 7 perfectly round rocks.
The scavenger hunt
kid would go and
created.
look for 7 perfectly round rocks. Yeah. And he'd bring some back, and if I need a little bit of time to chill still, I'd be like, this one's not round enough. And then I would throw it away, and I'd be like, go find another one. Yeah.
But we do get a montage of her shenanigans during this.
So good. So many bugs.
It's so weird. Like, it's so cool and just fun to look at. And I didn't have any moments that I would have. Like, if this was live action, I would probably be saying right now, like, they didn't need to do this montage. It was just, like, filler. But this
is not filler.
No, it's not filler when there's so much love and intricacy put into these little moments. Like Missing Link had a lot of little moments that knowing that the animators put this much like work into, it elevates it so much.
Well, we mentioned it on the episode last week. Some of the most beautiful moments in The Missing Link are the montagey filler moments where it's just these like extended beautiful sequences where they're like, we have to make this a trailer shot, but then we're like, well, we're also going to make it 45 seconds long so that when it's in the movie, people are going to be like, wow, that looks amazing.
Yeah. But also it usually ties into the plot too, like with the bugs and like having Coraline and then the Coraline doll in the window looking out, seeing the bug motif in the design of the windows of the house. Like it all, there's a lot of bugs in this movie, but it all does tie in. Like it's not just there to be there and look cool. It is there to be there and look cool, but it also ties in so directly to the story itself, which is great.
Bugs and rats and just weird stuff.
That's something that Paranorman did pretty well. The Missing Link, not as well, but they did have time and care, but a lot of that was just like visually, we're going to spend our time to make everything just look like a beautiful concept painting.
Yeah, I like the sad blue boy in the real world, and then with like the dropped ice cream cone, and then she's in the other world, and he's like happy and has like a perfectly sculpted ice cream cone. It's like...
which weirdly enough, that the blue boy is like a real painting that exists in reality. Fun fact, you know the scene in Django where Django dresses all in blue. And he gets to dress himself. That was like directly inspired by the blue boy painting. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's an iconic moment in that movie. I like that while she's dicking around, basically, she presses a button she shouldn't press that literally says "do not press," and it turns off
funny.
the dad's computer. He loses his mind. She's carrying the doll around this whole time and talking to it, and she's stoked. And the doll just like disappears. And that's when she finds the painted over door, which she immediately is like, I'm going to cut this fucker open. This is
Why wouldn't you?
This is when I noticed that Neil Gaiman loves doors to other dimensions. He's got, I believe there's some stuff about like that in American Gods, but I started reading but never finished another book that had kind of a sci-fi doorsy vibe where like this person comes out of a door and just runs into basically like, I imagined him as kind of like Martin Freeman, you know, like just like a plain guy. Do you know what book this is? I can't remember the name of it. But anyway,
Narnia, like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
But it's like it's all about like these doors that exist around Britain. I think it might have had a not quite a cyberpunk vibe to it, but like if the people on the other side dressed like were underground people. I don't remember now. I read this book 20 years ago. Now I never finished it, but
someone will know.
It was a Neil Gaiman. I read it right. It was less than 20 years ago because I read it. I started reading it after American Gods, which I did read. So anyway, that's a little bit of brief history.
Oh, it was American Gladiators.
I was watching American Gladiators, and I was like,
"There's these doors everywhere," and these guys came out. And they started fighting with giant Q-tips. It was great.
And I was like, "This is it. This is the thing." And that show rules, by the way. But watch the documentary about it because the documentary about it outlines like how horrible the conditions were for not only the gladiators but also the people coming on the show. It reminds me of like when UFC first started and regular people were just fighting each other to a fault. You know, like some guy who like is good at bar fights an actual martial artist.
Oh no, people will get hurt
and just gets
that's what
quick.
Yeah. That's what UFC was in the beginning. It was literally just, oh, you're good at fighting, or you think you are, just fight.
Come on in.
So it's Mortal Kombat.
It was Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Mortals.
I think a guy would come in with
There was a guy
taped to his hands.
There was a guy who fought with one boxing glove on. Seriously, in the original UFC.
How is that legal?
Because there were no rules.
He's like, but he also he agreed to keep his other hand in his pocket.
No, Dana White bought it and made it.
And he came into the Alanis Morissette song. Where he's got one hand in his pocket and the other one is fighting in a UFC octagon.
I like that. They should add that to that song.
And I like that I'm reading Tim's message here like a couple minutes later from the conversation we were having, but this applies to what we're saying now. Similar to Ghibli films, when they establish the world around the steady atmospheric shots and sequences, just like the original UFC, I'd say.
just like that. That's how that works. Yeah, no, it's very cool.
So yeah,
so we got kitchen scene. Is that what we're on to?
We're at the point where she finds the bricked up wall behind the door.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have any? Since I don't know, did we gloss over anything that you'd like to add? Because
everything I've covered so far.
Okay, fantastic. At dinner that night, she has to eat gross food or go to bed because the dad's terrible at cooking, but it is the cook. Like, I think that...
He's very proud of his really gross-looking food, too.
I'm sure it's fine. Like, chard is fine.
Oh, God, yeah.
Chard's fine.
My food does not always look good, but it always tastes good.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if a kid would also be like, yeah,
That's
that
very
looks
true.
delicious.
Yeah.
Like, ew.
Yeah,
it looks like gray mush. I'm like, yeah, but try the
But
gray
try
mush
the gray
before you diss it.
The
bro.
gray stuff, it's delicious. A la Beauty and the Beast.
Exactly.
Swiss chard cooked properly is delicious. I'll say that. You know what I'm saying? Or rainbow chard. Okay, this isn't a chard podcast.
Also, when I first came into the room and you guys were talking, and Jason, you were like, and there was like this glistening stuff, and like that, and then you were like going into all this detail, and I thought that you were talking about the food in this movie, and it turns out you were talking about real food.
Oh, I have a whole thing about
real
that.
Good Brussels sprouts.
I have a whole thing about that later when the freak mom's cooking, but we'll get to that. She chooses bed instead of eating. She like plays with her food for a second, then it just cuts to her in bed. And
I
then
get it.
In the night, some sort of I wrote mouse hamsters because I wasn't sure what they were yet. I thought they were hamsters at first, but we get that weird shot of them like almost like kaleidoscoping because I have a little bit of a I have a little tiny inkling of a
Okay. I'm like, either he actually doesn't know what he's about to say, or he's
looking for something.
Yeah.
My theory here is that it's all a dream. I know that's the easiest way to look at it.
Well, yeah.
And I know that it's one of those, like, there are reasons why you know that everything happened. But I'm just going to put that out there. The first time she
That's
goes
the
to
common
sleep,
thread between
yeah.
this and Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and Pan's Labyrinth is like, it's the
What is
girl has a
reality,
crazy
what's not?
imagination and she's dreaming everything. Yeah.
Or
think it
is
was-
it witchcraft? We don't know.
Yeah, it could be. But I think that's worth mentioning because there's so many movies that have this sort of common, like, theme.
But I think the thing about that theme is that it is inconsequential to the story, right?
And
like,
it's also up to interpretation, which makes these stories really cool to talk about.
Yeah.
Is that, like, there is no definite answer, but it's nice to be like, oh, I think.
And then you
that's
throw
like-
things in at the end to make the audience question if it's real or not. But ultimately that doesn't really matter, right? Because
No.
you're still watching
You're on the
this
journey.
adventure. Yeah.
I'd like to point out that a new user came into our chat, Bayako Saka, and said this.
Oh.
So we got to be quiet now on this podcast. Thank you.
That was,
Or is
that
it
was
the
actually,
last person to touch their nose has to take a drink? Is
No, that was Henry
'cause
Selick
that's-
came in and he's like, stop talking about my movie.
secret.
Or it was Neil Gaiman from the other side of a spooky door.
Yeah, he came through the door dimension onto the
Do
internet.
this one.
Yeah.
It's called dial-up, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny to me. Anyway, we get this weird kaleidoscope of hamsters. They turn out to be mice, and they lead Coraline to the small door, and she follows, and I guess another dimension of the same place, or so it seems at the beginning. And then this is where we're introduced to the mom. She's got creepy buttons for eyes, but her makeup is
Stunning.
Oh my god, dude!
Also, her nose is straight.
Yes.
Unlike Coraline's actual mom.
Her hair
and doesn't have the neck brace. It's just like kind of like part of like maybe her costume
Her
pieces,
hair's a
but
little
like
bit
it's
more
not.
like she's not disheveled looking. She's not.
She looks
gray.
like glowy.
Her hair's like very black. Her lips are very red. Like like I was like
Saturation to the nines.
Jason's at work watching this on his lunch break and he's like,
Not super for work.
making
Jason.
sure no one's watching, even though he watched Showgirls at work.
I had to
That's
turn
very funny.
Showgirls off at work because I was like, oh yeah.
Can't do that.
You put one of those like blankets that people wear on like a flight over your head. to, like,
But does that
watch
make it
the-
look more creepy?
Yeah,
You're like,
it makes
no,
people
it's for
think
my
you're
other
jerking off in your
thing.
weird tiny tent.
Well-
I just really quickly, before we dive into going through the door, because this scene is incredible, I just want to quickly throw it back to the kitchen food scene for 2 points. One, I really like the fact that they mirror Coraline's father singing a song with like bad poetry, and like it's all about these like this gross food that he's serving, but he's still doing that thing. And I really like that mirror. And the other thing was the use of silence in this scene is so good. It makes you feel like you are at the dinner table and everything is awkward and nobody actually wants to talk. And it just creates this whole vibe of, I don't want to be here. Yeah. And then we jump into the other world and it's filled with sounds and music and everything's whimsical and beautiful. Escapism. But
No,
I like it.
That's great. And I was looking for, the whole time I'm looking for reasons why it's like an alternate opposite universe, but it isn't quite an opposite universe because
it's a reflection.
It's just a better universe.
Yeah. Well, we learn that it's built in basically the den. What's the den bomb? The
Bedlam. Bend. I wrote it down.
The bed man.
I am afraid no sleep.
Bedlam.
I am afraid no bed. Freaky.
Yeah, it's the bedlam. It's also another word for witch as well.
Right. So the witch is essentially creating a world where that's perfect for you. Because
it's very groomy.
Yeah, I mean,
very
the thing
grooming.
you could call it is looking through a rose-colored mirror.
Yeah.
Because everything that you see is better.
The contrast immediately that we see when she goes through is that painting is like correct when she goes through. And then like her bedroom in that world has like the full bed with the ceiling, the roof, whatever they're called. It's the
a bed roof.
Oh, like the canopy?
It's like a bed
bed?
lamp, but it's a bed roof.
The bed lamb.
Very nice.
The dad is a musician. He's also got buttons for eyes.
Is he a musician?
No, because the piano isn't a player piano. It plays his arms.
Yeah.
No, it's a player piano. It just requires human arms to play. Yeah.
And I wrote, it sounds like the guy from They Might Be Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you were right.
Yeah.
But it is John Hodgman and also John Hodgman on the podcast that I listened to where they talked about the video game. He was the guest on that episode, and he talked about how he did record a version of that song, and then he performed it on the podcast. And I gotta say,
it was probably fine because
I was like, why didn't they just use John Hodgman? But then I guess at the same time, because he also wrote the song, the guy that
well, that's what I was going to say. They probably also released the song as a single somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, but he also he wrote it, and performed it, and was like, here it is. And then they got John Hodgman to do a version, and they're like, let's just use the original because.
If you've never listened to They Might Be Giants, they're sort of like if Weird Al didn't write parodies. Like a rock band from the late 80s, early 90s.
That sounds like the same voice type, like that tone quality of it's kind of like flat but round. I don't know. I'm a vocal.
Call me. One of their best songs is called "Call Me Dr. Worm," and I promise you'll love it. It's a fucking fantastic song. Call me Dr. Worm. It's a great.
I know that song.
I thought that it was called "Call Me Dr. Worm" and you'll love it.
I also like in
that's
this
what the whole
scene,
song was called.
With this song in particular, if we're kind of jumping there, this whole all the lyrics themselves are just warning signs to Coraline, and the way that it's filmed, and also how we learn about Dad in real world and then Dad in other world. There is kind of control on both sides of who's the boss in the situation, and the fact that through everything, the dad is still trying to protect Coraline in both worlds. And we'll see it later when she's trying to find all the pieces and eyes and all that stuff. But it's literally, she's a peach, she's a doll, she's a pal of mine. So doll, cute as a button, in the eyes of everyone who ever laid eyes on Coraline. When she comes around,
cute as a button in the eyes of who? Oh, are you telling me that there's a line that says buttons are going in people's eyes here?
I know. And then Mom and I will never make it boring. Our eyes will be on Coraline. But it's just this little boop, 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 boop. Mm-hmm. Don't pay attention because it sounds fun.
Well, this is also where the stranger danger element of the movie comes into play, right? Where they're technically predators and they are giving her everything that she wants. They're her loved ones. But you have to be aware, even people you love sometimes will be giving you everything that you want and need, and you shouldn't always take those things blindly unless you absolutely unconditionally trust
I think if I had a whole day
things, right?
of people telling me about things I couldn't do, and then I had a dream or woke up in the night and went through a door, and suddenly I was allowed to do all the things, even at her young age, I think I might have been like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, hold on.
It does feel off, and she does call it out though multiple times, but she still is willing to go down the journey. And this is also why, for me, when I watch this movie, when I first watched it and until now, it is very a theme of grooming someone who is vulnerable, who has people that don't listen to them, who wants to be heard, who wants to be seen. And then you have someone who is a manipulator coming in being like, I will give you everything that you ever wanted. All I need is just buttons in your eyes. That's it. Just a simple little trade-off. It's totally fine. All you have to do
is sew these buttons in your eyeballs, give me your eyeballs, and then it's all good. You can have as much ice cream as you want.
It sounds like a nightmare situation.
It is very much so.
Well, they definitely take your eyeballs, because remember the kids, she has to go find all the kids' eyeballs.
Right.
Yeah. Which is also very much like dark fairy tales too, right? They were made in the beginning to warn children of dangers. That's why dark fairy tales exist. Like Hansel and Gretel and Snow White, and even Alice in Wonderland has a lot of dark themes in it. Cinderella, of maybe just don't trust everything you see. Question it, tell someone you actually trust about it.
Someone you've just met who is clearly hanging on to every single thing that you say or do, and collecting information and then using it to gain your favor
Of
is
course.
super suspicious.
Too good to be true, right?
Not to say that
Yeah.
that isn't also a valuable skill to have as a human being. If you do care about someone, you should probably listen to them and
No,
make sure
it's
that
just
you're
maybe
collecting
power
that
dynamics
information.
might be in play
Yeah,
there. Like
yeah.
if you're like you just a normal loving person and you're like, this is consensual on both sides and I'm not trying to be weird and
A
manipulative,
weird
that's fine.
creepo who's
Like
like, all right, but I'm gonna give you all this stuff you need, but
Like the
But I
fact
want
that
this.
I
her
have this box with a couple buttons in it. I need you to look at it for a second.
the fact that her bedroom in the nightmare world has all kinds of cool, weird pets, like really
Her
nice
friends come to
toys.
life in
friends
her little
in her little
picture with
painting.
button eyes.
Yeah,
Or a
they use the
picture.
word toque, which I think we all were like, whoa,
Luke.
this is an American movie with the word toque in it? I didn't know that existed.
And then
Crazy.
she falls asleep in the bed for the first time, and when she wakes up, the poison oak on her hand, which we mentioned early on, is gone. So that's
Because
one of those,
other mother put the mud on it.
right, the mud, and that's one of those moments where you're like, oh, it is real.
I
Because
also
it's-
will say
In the
I-
other dimension, what they have a song. It says, "If you like it, then you better put some mud on it. If you like it, then you better put some mud on it." Yeah, and you go,
It's
dude,
true.
dude, right?
I really like that too. And like, I was actually thinking about this scene in particular earlier today, where we have Coraline's actual parents being into plants and gardening and all of these things. And Coraline is dismissed without even being listened to by her actual mother, being like, hey, I got poison oak on my hand. And her mother is too out of it to even pay attention to that. Whereas if she actually does know plants and she does know gardening, maybe she would have actually known how to heal that. She also says, no, Coraline, you can't go play outside in the mud. It's raining. Don't do that. She could have been healed in that moment, but she
True.
just wasn't listened to the whole time. It's like, oof, that stings.
Part of me wonders if there was like a subplot where mom is popping a lot of pills for that neck pain that she's got.
Maybe. Honestly, I get it. Car accidents? Oh.
One of the most
Sounds
unresolved
like a lot.
plot lines is that mother. Anyway, I'm gonna go on a tirade about that at the end of the movie, but the parents don't believe her, of course, and tell her to go talk to the people downstairs.
Get out of our hair. Go talk to them.
Exactly. Go talk to the weirdos in this building. But before she makes it down to the basement, we meet Mr. Babinski.
I love Mr. Babinski.
He's a fantastic character. We see a real world version of him. This is such a video game movie, dude. We meet a real world, but it's not like a movie they made. It's into a video game. It's like the movie is a great representation of what video games are like, because we get this real
video game
world
storytelling, right?
alternate version of him, and then like a boss version of him, which is cool.
Also, Tim brought up a good point that is maybe missed if you don't know a lot about stuff. Tim does. The upstairs neighbor is actually a Chernobyl survivor. He has a medal on his chest that was awarded to those who helped in the disaster relief for that event. And probably why he looks like a zombie, man.
Like he's got blue
He's
skin.
just a ball with
irradiated,
legs.
yeah.
And also he wears very little clothing, and that is a reference, I think, now that you mention it, Tim, to if you watched the show adaptation of Chernobyl, there are these guys who went in, they had their clothes kept like burning
Yeah.
because they were getting too close to the radiation. So they had to go in naked to like keep digging the tunnel down to the isotope. And that show was good. It's one of the best horror things I've ever seen without it being
Well, also it's real life horror, right?
That's what I'm saying. It being basically
That's terrifying.
not a documentary, but like a biopic version of the Chernobyl disaster. It's so fucking good. I was like, are they gonna make a sequel? And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess it's a pretty self-contained
All right, in a
story.
couple of years there'll probably be some sequel material.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for that, Tim. Yeah, the miners there. You mentioned that. That's a really good point. I didn't think of that, but that's really cool.
I think it also kind of explains why he's kind of loopy and
crazy,
like also Ian McShane. Come on.
McShane,
This guy, every time he does a voice acting performance, it makes me so happy.
Also, I
like him in live action as well, but he has one of the top 10 best voices of all time.
He's also on the American Gods TV show as Odin, so there's a bit of a connection with Neil Gaiman there too, which is interesting.
Oh yeah, they're best friends.
They're best friends in real life. Ian McShane and Neil Gaiman. Gonna meet Babinski.
Ian McShane also in Kung Fu Panda. That's another connection to something, probably.
Do you think he's gonna come back for the fourth one that comes out soon? That Jack Black is all over every screen. For
He
right
is,
now?
yeah. He's in the trailer for the new one. Even though he died in the first movie, that's the whole concept of the fourth one is that this new villain is like resurrecting all the villains from the other movies.
Cool.
And Ian McShane was the villain in the first movie.
That's a good part 4 plot to do.
I love Kung Fu Panda, by the way. Weirdly enough, it doesn't seem like something that Steve would love, but I fucking love it.
I've
so
only
much.
seen the first one. I do
What?
remember liking that.
The second one is one of my favorite movies. Period. And
you have a CGI movie in one of your top spots.
I'm not gonna say it's top 10, but it's up there.
But
man.
it is
I
your
love
favorite
Kung Fu
movie.
Panda. But I love Kung Fu Panda too.
That's awesome. That makes me want to watch.
I have a lot of weird, sneaky favorite movies. You know my
We all
love for
do.
Shaft 2000.
You love Shaft 2000.
I bring it up a lot. Yeah,
It's
love
crazy how much you loved Shaft. You rewatched it and just kept sending me scenes from it that you recorded on your TV.
Yeah, because I was like, check it out. We should do this movie.
I would
Just
love
like
to.
Hook.
Samuel Jackson's in it. It's like, I know.
Yeah, no shit. I would like to do a black exploitation month, but I don't know if it's my place to talk about that. He is Russian. I wrote, is he Russian or Polish or something? And he's a circus man. That's what I wrote. He's got cheese samples.
Yep.
Call me
But he's
Mr.
using
They
it.
smell bad.
But he sniffs them as though he wants to eat them, but he doesn't. He's using them to train the mice.
To train the mice.
Yeah.
And
I also really like that I know we're just starting with Babinski, but like even he's like, Caroline, whatever your name is. But these mice were talking about someone named Coraline.
Yeah, they keep
and told them
mispronouncing
not
your
to
name.
go
They
through
say
a
it is
door, but that can't be
Coraline.
you. I'm like, no, that's insane. Still not
and she
listening, but
basically
still
looks at the
warning.
camera and goes, "Oh, brother."
Right?
At that moment too, which I thought was great. He also has this thing where he really just wants to be called amazing, but like he doesn't.
He is amazing.
Later, at
He's
this point,
amazing.
we think he's a crazy person who lives in
Do
the
you
attic.
see him on top of the roof doing like weird stretches? That's
In the
amazing.
opening sequence.
I
yeah.
can't do that.
True. He does sort of come down into her vision, just like upside down.
Yeah,
That's great.
his opening monologue, he's upside down, and then he leaps off of the roof at her, and then stops himself perfectly right before he gets gouged in the groin by
By her.
By the shears, the garden
shears.
Yeah, because he's got crazy long legs.
and crazy good reflexes.
True.
I wrote,
Because he's amazing.
this guy is wild. He wants to make his mice play a better song with the stinky cheese, and they're jumping mice.
Yeah.
They meet up, and the mice are basically like, he's like, the mice say, "Don't go into the little door." I don't know what that means, but don't go into the little door.
Or someone named Coraline. Don't know who that is.
Right. Which is, you're right. That's so friggin' just good
Nobody
storytelling
listens.
and weird. And that's a big, as a kid, my mom to this day, I'll talk directly to her and she just doesn't listen to me.
Yeah.
There's like a TikTok trend about that. I think it's probably already passed at this point, but it's like, here's what it's like talking to your mother. And you're like, Mom, will you do this or do that? And she's just like,
What?
doesn't hear anything you're saying. And my mom is that person. And I get
Is this turning into a group therapy session?
little
We can
bit.
talk about our feelings.
Tell us
Fine.
more, Jason.
a little
Tell
bit.
us more about
And
your
how did that
mother.
make you feel?
Yeah.
It makes me feel bad. It's funny. I went through therapy for some stuff last year, and I kept waiting for the therapist to ask me about my family and my mom, and my dad and my mom mostly.
They won't do it unless you're ready. That's just how that works.
I was fully ready.
They need
Just-
the in though. You need to like mention it a little bit, and then like, okay, you're good. Let's.
did.
What does that
Yeah.
mean?
I brought it
fired
up
my
on
therapist
the
because she was a
very
right-wing
first
lunatic.
the very first session. I was like, so my mom's a bitch. Can we talk about that, please?
You were
And I
like,
made a little.
here we are.
Saw them visibly make a little check mark.
Yeah. I'm
I've
just
done
joking,
some
she's
homework
not.
on my own, and I think I have some evidence as
Right.
to why I
Yeah.
am the way I am. Check mark it? I don't know.
My
So-
mom doesn't listen.
Coraline makes it
No,
down.
I was gonna say like that. I think that is a common thread for all human beings, is that like everybody thinks that their mom doesn't listen, but then the worst thing is that like you go back and you're like, remember when we had this conversation? And they're like, no. You're like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
But also I think that's why stories like this and like Alice
Exist,
and
yeah.
like all of these things make sense to why they have an audience.
The unheard
We're
child,
not
yeah. And everybody can relate to it, right? That's why movies like this resonate with adults. We're all adults, people.
Yeah.
We're all here and we're all
But it
resonating
sticks.
with this child. None of us are resonating with the parents at all,
No.
because we don't
No.
have children. But I
That's
guarantee
true.
you, if you watch this movie as an adult with children, you will probably identify with the bad parents at some point.
Of course,
As
because
I
we're
did, being
human,
like,
right?
I
Like we're
need to
gonna
give
make
this
mistakes.
I need to make this kid go find 7 round rocks. I imagine that every day. Imagine having to come up with those little tasks.
No,
every day.
you ironically, you have the closest experience to having kids of the three of us.
Yeah.
Because
I have a
you have-
Except
cat.
it wasn't one kid. It was
a
8 to
million
12 kids for a week
I've
for 9 hours a
babysat
day.
a dog for a week twice, and both times I was like, "Gil, stop looking at me, please. Please stop
Personal
looking at me."
space.
Yeah, but it would come.
That
over
was a
like-
dog.
Yeah, dogs are the easiest.
They don't know how to talk and diss you.
And the second time,
They will.
But
Kids
actually,
will do
both
that.
times, let's be real, I didn't have to even walk the dog because Madison took it on as she wants a pet, she wants a dog, and I'm like, if you get a dog, you gotta walk it. I'm not doing that.
Oh, you turned into the parent?
A
Who
little
doesn't want to get...
But I don't want to. That's
We're all
weird.
guilty.
Yeah, we're all guilty. We're guilty of being kids, and we're guilty of being parents at any given Sunday.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Football
have to take
movie.
it outside to take a pee-pee and a poo-poo.
I refuse. You poop inside like an adult.
Or like a cat. Get a cat.
Like a cat, yeah. A cat is basically like having an adult.
Yeah.
You
It doesn't
adopt an
pay
adult.
attention. It doesn't listen to what you're saying. It poops inside.
I don't know. My baby listens to me and I call her baby all the time.
Well,
So
Anyway,
Yeah, having a cat is like having a really, really smart child.
yeah. She's so smart. It
I think
hurts.
that children might be smarter than a cat. That's
Now,
for
cats
another.
are also stupid.
Yeah, the cats are dumb
but-
as fuck.
Yeah.
Coraline.
The-
I almost called her Caroline like a complete asshole. By the
Yeah.
way, just now.
Offended.
Right? Coraline, she makes it. We're in like the fucking first 10 minutes of this movie.
I know. I'm so sorry.
It's
yeah.
fun. Coraline makes it down to meet the old ladies. They've got 1,000 dogs. Well, they've got 3, and
So many taxidermied, angel winged dogs.
she sees the posters of them on the wall of the what they looked like in their youth. One offers
Ladies can't let go.
one offers some toffee. The other offers to read her tea leaves. These two are fantastic characters. I noted. Reminds me of the witches from Zelda a little bit.
A little
Kamala and
bit.
Kapora, or whatever their names are. Dun, 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 dun.
Poof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next
That's
10
such a
minutes of
good
the show is
song,
us
yeah.
just acapelling that
I love that song, dude.
potion shop theme.
There's a tall, handsome beast in your future. I see a very peculiar hand. I see.
So this is the first time that you see the hand,
Yeah.
but it's
But
actually
it could
not.
be a giraffe.
But it's also
Or it could be a
actually
giraffe.
it's not. So I like to consider myself an eagle-eyed viewer of things, and the hand is obviously meant to represent her hand at the end, the creator of the multiverse or whatever you want to call it in this, the mirror realm. But
Upside down.
if you notice, the first time that she's having dinner, there is a lightning strike outside, and that lightning strike
The same hand.
is the hand.
Oh, yeah.
And blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, but it's there and it's all over the movie if you slow things down and speed things up. But that's the first time where I was like, was that a claw? That was a claw, right? They didn't, they could have just made it a straight line, but it's a claw. And the tea leaves very clearly are a claw, and the claw keeps coming up. What do you think the claw represents? I assume it's just meant to represent her grasp on both worlds, right? Like her
I think
ability
it
to
must
to
be.
reach into the reality to like pull things through. Like it's her hand reaching in.
Well, I think it also like kind of goes back to it near the end of the film when like the hand gets through and
Yeah,
is
that's
trying
what I
to
was
still
gonna
go
say.
for the key. It's also why YB's grandma, I think, is so terrified of having any children in the house. I think that it's almost like an unspoken ghost story in this entire building itself.
Mhm.
Um, that like that presence is always there.
Also,
It's like
claw is
haunted and
cool.
like so cool.
It's
So
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 cool.
cool.
Visually, a claw is cool.
What does the giraffe mean?
Oh, sorry.
That
When the
means
two ladies
everybody
are
has to have
talking
long
about
neck.
their
Yeah.
interpretations of the cup, she's like, "No, it's like a like hand of death," and she's like, it turns it upside down, and she's like,
A
"I think it's
giraffe.
a
I think it's a
giraffe."
giraffe.
She's
Yeah.
like, "No, it's
That is
not."
just funny, is what it is.
It's very
Yeah,
funny.
that's
Good
how I
comedic
interpret
timing.
it. Coraline is like, "You guys are crazy," and goes outside. We get the really, I think, one of the best shots of the movie of like the really suddenly misty
Oh, so cool. Very Silent
outside.
Hill like.
Yeah, and our boy
Wybie.
Wybie shows back up. He's got a weird
Periscoping.
He's got a weird periscope
The
thing going
slugs.
on, and he turns upside down into like an elephant's nose, which I thought was like cool and weird. He's being a weirdo. He's hunting banana slugs. He asks about the doll. They have that weird like moment that's like a photo shoot with the banana slugs, which I thought was funny.
Which is not explained, and I like it. It's like he
I
just
like
is
it's just like childhood
like a weird.
whimsy.
But for a minute, I'm like, is he hunting them so that he can use them to go fishing, or like he's gonna sell them to like a bait shop or something? And it's like, no, he just wants to take a fun picture with some slugs.
Yeah.
One missed opportunity, I will say, is that he didn't go and like have it coming out
Alien
like the
moment.
alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, for as much Zelda as there is in this thing, I think
Yeah.
that a couple of like old school movie moments could have stood to be put in. It's time for bed again for Coraline. She leaves some cheese at the door because she knows that because of Babinski that mice like cheese. That's the only way she knows. Just kidding, of course. Mice like cheese.
Peanut butter gets him way easier than cheese, though, I'll tell you that much.
Whoa, that's kind of dark if you think about it. Kind of like this
I had
movie.
some outdoor cats as a kid, and we had a dog door, and more than once did I have mice in my bed while I was sleeping.
Aw, were they good cuddlers?
No, they terrified me, and I
Oh.
would scream.
That's tough. That was like me with spiders, but spiders are a little bit, they bite you. I don't know. Do mice bite you?
I don't think they ever bit me. I just like felt them crawl over my leg, and
That's a
I
lot.
would
Yeah,
kick
that's fair.
them, and you would hear it like
It's
you kick it, and then you'd hear it on the other side of the room.
Yeah. Poor things.
I had this thing.
Poor you also. That's tough.
One of the places I lived in had mice, and one was trying to make like a classic mouse door. I think the mouse door at the bottom, like Tom and Jerry cartoons, in my bedroom, and I could hear it like at the wall at night. But when I would get up to be like, "What are you doing?" I would just see a bigger hole in the bottom of the wall. I hated it. The thing that happens here, though, is she follows. The mice come and they take her back to the door. She goes to the door, and when she goes to the other side, they're cooking her another lavish dinner, and the dad or the mom is using that cheese.
The cheese.
So
She's like,
that's-
"Oh, thank you for the gift." She's like, "That was for the mice, but okay."
But the thing is what I
It was so
noticed
smart of you to send some cheddar over.
at this moment earlier, Coraline is like, "Why is the door so small?" I thought it was going to be a whole thing that these people were dolls, and the doll-sized Coraline was able to go through the small door.
Oh, interesting.
That's
Yeah, no, just made for children to eat later.
yeah. But that's not really what it is at all. The door being small is never really explained outside of it just being big enough for a tunnel for a child to go through, I guess.
I think it is that, right? Like, think of all of like the Bedlam's victims. They're all children. So like
She doesn't
what
want
would excite a
dad
child
coming
to be
through.
like, "Oh, curiosity, this is cool and it just fits me. I'm
Yeah.
going in." Like
Well,
that's
also,
every
like,
kid has
if
thought that,
computer
right?
dad goes through there and comes into like
His neck is too long. It won't
But
fit.
he enters into his dream world, he's immediately going to be suspicious, being like, "All right, what's the rundown here? What do I owe you for this?"
It is made for a kid for
Yeah.
sure.
The dad is in
I
the
don't-
garden working in the other world. The mom mentions that they are better parents than the
I
previous
mean-
parents. The
Are
weirdness,
they?
I wrote out the weirdness is palpable. Coraline hasn't quite recognized how bizarre this stuff is, because this is the sequence where sort of is changed,
Yeah.
but it's already really bizarre because it's, when you meet somebody for the first time and you talk to them and you're chummy and you don't know anything about them, so it's easy
Well,
to be
like the mask
chummy.
is still kind of up, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is fine.
But then mask off, whether or not you're gonna like that person for real. Like when you have a conversation that's, a little bit hits it a little bit closer to home, you sort of ask a question about their life that helps you get to know about them. This is where Coraline sort of goes through that.
Yeah.
The flowers in the garden are crazy. Like
So cool.
they're sort of like Disney-esque, otherworldly. Like, the hearts on the wall, the snapdragons.
Yeah. This moment feels a lot like the sensibilities of the Nightmare Before Christmas, right?
Absolutely. Even like the snapdragons, like trying to get at Coraline, and then there's like just that moment of violence with her dad just being like, chop them all up.
Yep.
And they're no longer violent, and now they're in control, and we'll put them in the vase. It's like, ooh, that feels weird. I don't like that either.
And they still snap, and the like praying mantis. I wrote, I like the mechanical praying mantis. Yeah, that's a good foreshadow. The fact that there's a mechanical praying mantis.
Mm-hmm.
And then the garden, we see the garden from above because the praying mantis turns into like a little helicopter, a gyrocopter thing. And we see that
beautifully done.
It's so good. But it's her face.
Yeah. And I also love, I think I wrote this.
I wrote, what does it all mean?
Down.
That's what I wrote.
It means it's all for her. Everything there is for her.
Yeah. No, I don't have the quote written down, but it is literally that of just being like, your mom knows you and we know you, and she made this for you because she knew you would love it. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. I hate that.
But it also shows that dad is a tool, right? Like he's nothing
Absolutely.
more
He's not
than
there.
a tool. Yeah. And one thing that, we know about the other world is that Coraline is not necessarily more attached to her dad. She doesn't necessarily love her dad more.
But it's more trusting.
She knows that she can go to him when mom is being the boss mode.
Yeah.
And he'll take care of her. And that's exactly what he's doing in this sequence, right?
But also, if we're thinking about other mother having control over this whole domain, she also knows that. So she's like, I can get secrets from you because I'll make your father. I'll make that person that
he's like literally like a gourd,
and I will learn more information.
He's a pumpkin later.
Yeah.
Oh, so sad.
We get Bizarro.
His name should have been Gordon.
That would have been great.
Gordo, Lizzie McGuire, and Gordo.
Yeah.
Bizarro Wybie enters, and he's basically the same, but mother is like, other mother is like, I made him not talk because I know how much you hate it when your only friend in this new town talks to you. And she's stoked, which is like so sad. He looks like a bit weird, and
he's got buttons for eyes.
He's got buttons for eyes. And then we get the Babinski sequence in this where the mice can actually do tricks. He's got lots of cool carnival stuff. Good. There's the part where they're walking through his hallway and they're hitting the cannons that are shooting
cotton candy cannons.
The candy cannons. And Wybie gets like blasted with a bunch of them. Then he's got just got cotton candy stick in his hair for like a bunch of it, which I sort of.
I think he had like 1, 2, and then like 3. Like,
but once those are knocked off, his character just has one for like a while, and I thought that was a really interesting look for him.
Yeah, but he can't actually eat it because his mouth has been sewn shut from the inside.
It's true, but check this out. Here's a note that I wrote at this point because everything is so ridiculous. How self-centered is Coraline that she thinks all of this is real?
Well, it's escapism. It's not, I don't think it's like like trying to be that. I think it's just her living a life where she just needs to go somewhere else where it can be about her for just a moment. So of course it's going to be about her.
Yeah.
Because nothing else is.
Yeah.
It's like, oof, ow.
That's the best way to look at it, because I was really blown away by like, as an adult, as a kid watching this movie, you're like, sick. She's getting everything she wants. I don't even know about the horrors of the world, but I'm like, I've experienced 40 years of the horrors of the world. I know that this is all, like you guys said, a little bit groomy.
Yeah.
Literally.
It feels icky as an adult to watch it. You're like, oh, I don't like that.
But this sequence, like from an animation standpoint, the mice in the circle doing the little formation,
going down all the steps with the ball,
him
so
appearing
well done.
out of the middle of the little tower that they build in the beginning, and then the parents and Wybie is there for some reason, put Coraline to bed again. Sorry, this isn't even the scene where she gets asked to be a doll person.
Eyeballs?
Oh, wait.
Give me your eyeballs? Yeah.
Is it, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the same night that she goes to see Babinski's? And then she also, I think, meets the talking cat the same night and realizes that he can talk?
I don't even
Or is that a different night?
Yeah, that's like the next night because
the next night?
She's
because
still
she also
stoked.
has the moment. No, I think you're right, because I think after this we have the shopping trip, and then we go back. She gets her clothes and she sees the burlesque girls.
She doesn't. Right? She doesn't get the jading doesn't start to happen until the mom is like, I'm going out for food, which is like the next bit.
And after Bobinski, we get the pick your colored eyes moment.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
I think it's after she finds everything that is desirable about this.
Got it. So after the burlesque girls, then,
right?
After their show with the dogs.
Coraline is trying to tell
her after she's offered the eyes, she's like, I'm never going back, and then she has to go back.
She tries to like barricade herself in the room, and she's like, oh, I'm still here. Damn.
Yeah. God damn it. It's a real secret window situation, or
Silent Hill 4.
Silent Hill
4.
Yeah.
Coraline trying to tell her parents. I like that she's trying to explain the Babinskis, like, he can actually do the most stuff. And the mom, and she's like,
he's not just an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Like, no, he's an alcoholic. She's like, he's eccentric.
He's just eccentric. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dad shows up. They leave. Coraline wants. Oh yeah. Then they go to the store to get ready for school. Everything that the mom is holding up on her is like gray and drab. She just wants one pair of gloves with color.
They're so cool.
And
be an individual for a moment when you're in a new space, not knowing anyone.
Everyone's gonna have gray gloves. Look at these ones, and they're not even that like crazy colorful.
No.
They're just
yellow.
Colors. Yeah, yellow and green.
and like
are they green?
Yeah,
I think it's yellow and green.
They're yellow and green, yellow and teal. Teal. I wrote here. I hope the mom, I hope this movie at least ends with the mom appreciating Caroline, and like I said,
her gloves.
I have some things to say about that.
I think we might have some similar things to say about this at the end of this season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she buys the glove. She probably bought the gloves in secret and was like, I'll give them to her later when she needs them. Like, she doesn't need them now, but I'm going to buy them for her later when she's feeling down, and then I'll give them to her as a little gift.
Sure. But also, like, again, it's the difference between parent-child relationship, right? Yeah. A kid sees that being like, I am still not being listened to, and I just want this one thing. It's not that expensive. Like, it's not that much.
You're going to buy me gloves anyway.
And
just
you
buy
have
me
just
these ones.
let me down again and again and again. Whereas it, like, maybe parent doesn't see it in that way. They don't see that light.
So
they're like, I'm going to get you this thing that you're asking me for, but I'm not going to give it to you until later, and it's going to be so good later.
Yeah.
But they don't.
But
yeah,
it
they
doesn't
don't think
mean
about
the same to a kid.
Yeah,
no, they don't get the impact of being told no, especially in a moment where it's like, well, you brought me here to buy me specific things. Like, why can't I have this thing?
Yeah.
We also don't get any of that subtext, because literally the next scene is they get home. The dad talks about some crazy meal he wants to make, because the mom is like, do you want like a salsa and mayonnaise, mustard and mayonnaise?
Yeah. That's all that's in their fridge, I think.
Yeah. It's just condiments and pita
empty.
wraps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Coraline's like, no. She's like, okay, I have to go get groceries to cook the thing that your dad wants for dinner. Do you want to come? And she's like, nah. Because she's hatched a plan. She knows about the drawer of keys. And so there's also a thing that happens during this where the mom, where she tries to get back in to the little door, but it's locked. So she knows that the key...
That her mom locked it and took the key away.
And the key...
And was like, that was giving you nightmares and making you act crazy. Like, so I figured you'd feel safer if I locked it for you. She's like, that was my only joy
Yeah.
that I had.
But the key is in a drawer of keys that they show a bunch of times in this movie. I want to know what all those other keys go to. Probably the 35 doors in this house.
Yeah.
But as soon as the mom leaves, she immediately goes,
as kids do,
as kids do, tries all the keys. She crawls through. It's open this time. It's not just a brick wall. She's able to crawl through. So like the worlds are kind of merging.
Yeah. She's more welcome now. I think she's like being trusted by the Bedlam herself, but also like the secrets are out there. Like, come in. Please come in. Never leave.
I think it's the Beldam, actually.
Beldam?
Yeah, I think I just remembered in my head. Beldam.
My dyslexia, not typing things properly. And I'm like, Bedlam?
That's fine.
Beldam.
A Bedlam is like a fight. And this whole time
I'm like,
I know it's similar to that, but it's
not.
I'm not trying to correct you out here, but
Oh
Beldam,
no, correct me away. I can't spell. It's too hard.
Spelling's hard. We do meet the cat now who is Keith David now.
Who is Keith David?
Who
I'll
is...
tell you that answer to that question.
So good.
The best.
Also,
he's
like
the best.
full Cheshire Cat moment. I'm like, it's Alice. Like we have this wise cat just showing you around and not giving you any answers.
Yeah.
No.
Just some hints. That's it.
I mean, the fact that Ian McShane and Keith David are in a movie together, it's just, I mean, who else could you ask
character actors?
Gary Oldman, maybe.
Yeah.
He's
Daniel
also really good at...
shows up and is like,
yeah.
I drink your milkshake. Drink it up.
That's a kill. This is a kill. That's a wound.
When she gets back, Mrs. Spink and Forcible have invited Cora to their place. She's got a new sweater that's flashy put on her as well, which is very like that groomy thing they were talking about, because she had just experienced a situation where she was just trying to get like some not even flashy gloves, like some grandma makes for you, so knits for you gloves, and the mom's like, no, she doesn't.
On the table in a box that's like perfectly wrapped. She's like, here's a whole new outfit for you that I picked out because I knew you would love it. You're like, that can't be trusted. That's insane.
Yeah.
Because
but a kid would be like, oh wow, you care.
Isn't even like we can't afford this. Real world mom is like, I don't care what you think. We got to wear the you got to wear the uniform for the school, and it's gray.
Yeah. Also, like I say no because I say no, and that's just it. No answers. Just I say no.
No mean mo. But why? Because I'm your mom. Oh.
That's it. I'm like, that doesn't help at all. At all.
I brought you into this world. I can take you out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can get rid of you, and I can make another one.
My mom used to say that.
That's a crazy thing to say.
I've heard those couple of those. Yeah.
Right.
My mom actually messaged me during that. She sent me a TikTok. I haven't looked at it. I don't think she's watching right now. My mom's on TikTok. I don't want to watch the TikTok because whatever. I thought that she messaged me because she's like, I'm watching right now, but she
like, how dare you?
Yeah, but I think that she's not listening. She's like, oh, that's my boy, and that's basically the extent of it.
Yeah.
This is where I got the real Cheshire Cat vibes. Mm-hmm. Also, he early in the movie when we first meet the cat that can't talk, Coraline calls the cat a big fat wuss puss, and he's like, not bad for a big fat wuss puss. And I was like, excellent callback.
Not bad for a big fat whiskers. Yeah. Now here's a man who knows his meatballs. Remember when the cat says that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's the best part.
I have to walk away for 2 seconds. Can you guys talk about the sequence where Spinks and Forcible have a full theater of 1,000 dogs?
Yes.
What a perfect time to walk away, Jason.
Here's a word that I wrote down that I'll leave you with, and that word is yabos.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's
Yabos,
a good word.
dabos, dubos. That's what I said when I walked into the theater.
This is a really cool sequence, actually. I really like it. It's weird to have some very, like, it's not sexual to, like, me as a person.
No, it's
like, I'm
goofy.
Just, like,
it's also
goofy,
funny,
and
right?
like movement wise, right? But it is kind of strange to like see it in like what is marketed as just a kids movie. If I did watch this with my parents, even though it was like, I don't know, in high school, they would have been like, what are
Who is
you
this for? Yeah.
watching? Um, but
Are
I
you
actually
attracted to elderly women?
right in like mermaid costumes.
Yeah.
I really, really love this scene. I think it is so good to show these two women who in the real world are very much stuck in who they are and having them be able to play out their fantasy in this other world. Like they are still there.
But also like
The reflection in the world is
you know
cool.
the thing that tapers down the weirdness of that scene is that those are disguises and they're
Disguises,
actually
yeah. It's
there's
just
there's something
costume.
they're wearing a costume, which is the first woman is just dressed like a mermaid. The
Yeah.
second one is when you're like, oh, she's like supposed to be a cherub or like a Valkyrie or
But
something.
that's also exactly how they act in the real world too.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I get it. She's like, no, I'm the hot one. Like
Well,
that's
like
just
I
what I
said
do.
earlier,
You're like,
what the
okay.
suits they burst out of is their future suits because there were all those posters from when they were younger in their home
Yeah.
that Coraline notices when she first goes in there, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah. I also
Yeah.
like all the little dog ushers.
Yeah, I like that the whole room is it
Just
also
the
infers that
dogs.
like there were way more dogs before they started taxidermying the dogs. And
Yes,
also why so many? Did they always have at least three at a
I
time? Did
At
they
think
just
least
so.
get
15,
more?
I
Yeah,
think.
that's what it seemed like.
I will say this kind of ties into something I might talk about at the end of this movie, but just about themes of the movie itself. We have control with the other mother and also Coraline's parents and other things. But another version of control I see in this movie is those two, the oh my God, Spink and
Forcible.
Forcible, with the dogs themselves. That is also a method of control, right? Of a situation. You're like, oh no, life can't end. Or if it does end, I'm already knitting a costume for this dog that's
Yeah.
dying because it'll help it just controlled. And it also is reflected in just the audience of dogs that are just watching them and taking care of the theater. It's very cool.
Which, as weird as it is, made when I saw that, like the theater is bigger. You know, like when she goes before when she goes into the little tent in Babinski's attic, it's bigger inside.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's like a theater of the mind thing when she first goes into Sphinx and Forcibles, where they're just creating all this like visual and audio noise at her. But then she walks into their apartment. It's literally a giant theater. This makes so much sense that the alternate versions of these people would represent and be shown this way because we're almost seeing like the other mother is almost creating this like she's not just like obviously these other versions of these people are just created as a fantasy, but they're based off of what they've seen created by the real people in the real world. So if the real people in the real world were to come in and see this, they'd be blown away by this. They would think, "Oh my god, this is what could have been." And I really liked that. I really liked the juxtaposition between these things. Like it fucking just makes sense and it's good and it made me feel these weird like this like weird sorrow. You know, I felt sorrow for these characters because these aren't them. But Coraline only knows these versions of them that she met a day prior
Right?
for a
It's
few
lost
minutes.
time or like history that like you don't get to be a part
Yeah.
of
I mean,
always.
she's spying on them over decades, right? And
Yeah,
building up these personas. She probably didn't create them herself, and she's probably not even using Coraline as like a baseline for that. She's like, let me show Coraline the most beautiful reality for each one of these people, right?
For
exactly.
sure. That also relates to her reality that she's seen on the billboards that she
And
has
this
some kind of connection to.
Yeah.
Also, BRB.
this could be a bit of an allegory or like a metaphor for like growing up because of how you know when I can remember things that pushed me forward emotionally, how jarring it is to be pushed forward, you know, and how weird it can seem
Well, and
even as an
also the
adult.
scariness of the expectation of having to move forward from
Yes,
something that you're comfortable in. Um, I think that that's almost 100% what this movie is entirely about is like Cass was saying, escapism, right? Like it's much easier for you to escape into a fantasy world and sit there and stay there for as long as you can than it is to maybe improve your own life. You know, if your life is not really fulfilling you in the way that you want it to, you'll create other places to go, whether that be, going to the bar and getting really drunk all the time, or playing video games every waking moment that you have, or watching movies
or
like we
doing
do.
something that makes you feel good versus doing something that is going to result in making you feel like shit. And I feel, as a whole, even up to this point, I feel bad for Coraline. Like, I feel bad with how much stuff she's had to endure, and how many how many bad things have happened, but also how many nice things have been dangled. She doesn't know the truth yet. She doesn't know how bad it's going to get. But at this point, she thinks everything in this alternate universe is amazing and doesn't question why, which had me going, like, you have to be so naive, but you have to realize that how old is Coraline? Do we know? She's like 12?
I think she seems like she's like 9 or 10.
9 or 10? Like, that makes sense. Like, when you're 9 or 10, you're very easily tricked into belief. Whoa.
I think she's supposed to be a smart 9 or 10-year-old, where she's
True,
like
she's precocious.
Getting it.
She's precocious, and she's a latchkey kid for sure.
But she's also still tantalized by the offerings of this witch, right? Like this mirror witch or whatever. I also just noticed the poster behind you, Jason, that the tree is the claw. I was like, oh, the tree's the claw too. Look, the claw is there in the
Yeah,
poster.
it's connected the whole time.
God damn it.
The poster for this movie.
It's trying to get her. That's
the poster for this movie
shows just the claw is trying to get her. That's all it is.
It shows the whole movie. It's got the two worlds. It's always, we didn't mention. I don't know if it goes without saying, but the alternate universe is always nighttime. But the real universe
the only
has
time
night
that it
and
isn't
day.
is when she makes the deal with the beldam herself, and she's like, okay, if it gets to midnight or whenever the sun kind of goes down, then you're done. But that's the only time that is during the day.
I think that also plays into the Alice in Wonderland Wizard of Oz of it all, where it's like she's sleeping.
The Wizard of Oz of it all.
Yeah, she is sleeping. That's why it's always nighttime.
Yeah.
But that's also,
it's also when she always chooses to go into the world when her parents are asleep. Nobody's looking at her. She can be like, oh, I can escape into this.
Yeah, and she escapes during the day at that one point, right, where the snow globe is broken and stuff.
There's a really weird moment here that does have a great payoff, where as they're outside coming
this is the meatball point where he's like, now here's a man who knows his meatballs.
Yeah, but the thing that stuck out to me is everybody's all smiley and happy and trying to create this great world for Coraline to see, to visualize. And Wybie doesn't come up and tuck her in this time. They leave him outside and he frowns. And other mother is like, you gotta smile. Yeah. And then, of course, before I get to why that's pertinent information, we get the whole dinner of other mother being like, I did a favor for you. Why don't you do it?
Exactly. It reads into like, I can give you everything you want. You just got to give me this little thing.
And that's your whole eyes. You got to sew these beads on your eyes.
Not a big deal. You can get whatever color you want.
Black is traditional, but you could get magenta. You could get
vermilion, chartreuse.
And don't worry, because the needle's so sharp, you won't even feel it.
I also love
them like, shut up. Put the sharpness of the needle.
Yeah, he immediately goes, ow! Because like he pricks his finger on it.
Yep.
Oh, what an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just a pumpkin that has been animated, right?
But I also again, it's him trying to kind of help out Coraline, and like every single time he does, he's like, nope.
Yeah.
Just slap on the wrist,
because
get out of
there.
there.
Go against what mother says. That's what we learn very soon. So Coraline then is like, no, I don't think I want to sew
sounds bad
onto my eyes. It sounds like a bad time. I do like this world, but I'm gonna go back to my world and close this nightmare realm forever.
All of her toys are talking to her. They're like, just stay here with us, Coraline. We could be best friends. And she's like,
squid,
that's creepy. Get out of here.
There's something wrong with that squid. I don't know. He says some weird shit
suck
sometimes.
your face.
Yeah. You're like, what?
It's an alien moment.
Yeah.
She bolts the fuck out of there. She jams all the toys in a toy box and tries to barricade the door. and she wakes up. Sorry, I thought that she woke up in the other world just hours later, but nope, she's still in the same world.
She doesn't leave.
She leaves the room in the same world because it's like, oh, I didn't leave because it's the same bedroom. She sees the dad again, and now it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
He's like turn off mode. He's just like, I am waiting. Mom is sleeping. I can't say anything, but I'll try. And every time I do, I will get full piano hands.
Here's what he says before the piano
hands,
has a mind of its own and shuts him up. All will be swell as soon as Mother's refreshed. Her strength is our strength.
Yeah.
So
Best
witchy.
not to talk when Mother's not here. And Wybie pulled a long face and Mother didn't like it.
Oh, the like long face moment. Ooh.
Yeah. This is when it goes from like
his face
they're
distorts.
puppets to like they're full made of clay and stuff, and you can see like the seams breaking, and it's
very cool medium.
quite disturbing. It's kind of like Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey a little bit, but you're like, oh, the creepiness of like the monotone delivery.
But again, like still trying to help. Like
yes,
he is like fighting
not,
in every way, even though he must be still a creation
which,
of the other mother.
Which makes me feel like the cat exists in both worlds, right? But is the cat also, is he just able to get through the door? Or is there a part of him that's a creation? Because why can't he speak on the other side? Is it just because people don't understand him over there? Is that
just how cats work?
My
cat
cats
talks
in a mirror.
The
A cat talks.
My theory is that the
saying.
cat is the same in both worlds, but can talk in the other world.
Yeah,
that's
your theory. That's like literally what is happening in the movie.
It's a good theory, Jason.
You asked. I played the sting.
I feel like you're right though. It is like the Cheshire Cat. Like if you think of Alice in Wonderland, which is one of my faves, you think of like Dinah, who is Alice's cat.
Where they look completely different, right? Like
completely different, but still like a cat guide through the world. Of course, your like kid brain is going to be like, oh, we can go here. But also, is it maybe the same thing?
But like the other animals don't talk in the fake world, right? So it's like, why is
that
it?
Cat?
Yeah.
And also Wybie's best friend, who was like just a stray and just wants to hang out, and then over time becomes really close with Coraline and tucks her into bed at night when her parents aren't there.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's just looking out for you.
But I mean, even Wyvern seems like he's a stray too, you know, like he's kind of like a human embodiment of a stray cat. Yeah.
He does this like a listening cat.
They all do it at the end. Yeah, at the end I was half expecting at some point at the end when they're having that sort of like Wizard of Oz moment where and you were there and you were there and you were there, but they're all just like having a party, and you finally see Grandma. I thought there was going to be like a moment where some other guy shows up and he's like, "Hello, I'm the mailman." It's like Keith David's voice or something. Now here's a man who knows his mail.
No, it's just a cat.
But the whole thing throughout this whole movie is it's one of those movies where you're looking at the amount of time left going, how are they going to wrap this up? And when they showed that party
until the end, you're thinking that.
Even like, that party at the end, I was like, and they showed the grandmother. I was like, how? But literally the grandmother
is like the perfect way to wrap up any kind of movie like this, though. Just have a scene where everybody's there together being like and happy. Yeah.
And then we'll think about it forever and ever.
But okay, so then at the very the last frame of the movie is the cat on the Pink Palace, and he goes behind the post, but he
and disappears.
Right? But so he's a magical cat.
It ends exactly the same way it starts. I bet you could find a middle point to this movie where like, you know, it sort of.
Okay, so here's my theory about the cat.
Okay.
Play it, Jason. Play it.
The cat was a creation inside of the realm of the witch.
Mm-hmm.
She made the cat for somebody at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And the cat found its way through the door. Out. From
that makes sense. Because where
realm.
did the cat come from if it's a stray?
And it exists in both realms because it got through the door that nobody can get through except for.
I like that.
So this cat probably has been trying to help all those children at some point, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I like that a lot.
That's pretty good.
That actually, like, I think that checks out too, right? Like having the dimension door being there, and like if I don't know, if it were me and I was a little kid walking in there, I'd be like, black cat, I love that.
Yeah. Wait a
it
minute.
would be part of the world, part
My
of the
favorite
magic.
kind of cat. Yeah.
But it's also great because when the cat reveals itself to be able to talk, Coraline's like, I get to see what else is going on in this world. And they walk out of the range of the house, and the world just starts to crumble into a really... Actually, I wanted to mention the effect that they do here, because it's almost like a weird stylized wireframe that it sort of melts into. And then as it disappears, it goes into white, right?
Kind of matrixy, right?
Exactly. And as they keep walking, it just rematerializes. And she's like...
How can you walk away from something and still come back to it?
And he goes, "That's the whole. It's the whole world."
This line hit me so hard the last time I watched it. I was like, "Oh God, that hurts."
Do you know what
such
they
a
did?
good way.
They somehow did a 3D version of that effect that happens in video games, where you walk off one side of the screen and come from the other side, but in 3D, which you don't really see that often, I don't think. But I really liked that, because she's like, well, small world, which is like literal, but also think about how huge our world seems, but is pretty tiny, because
also a tool of manipulators.
Yes.
Manipulators, and also like poetic too.
Yeah.
It has like that one line has so many layers to it, and manipulator can be like, no, you're still in here, you haven't left.
How far are you gonna get without me?
Yeah.
And they go back into the house. This is where we get the bug room.
No, I was talking to both of you guys. How far are you gonna get without me?
You can't manipulate me. I've already done all the work on manipulating you. Ha! You're both manipulated.
God damn it.
At least a full bus
Not
ride
again.
away.
But speaking of manipulation, they go back into the house because they really have no other choice. They go into the bug room, where there's... The big video game thing is like some MacGuffin or some dumb thing that just gets in front of a door, and you have to like find a way to get rid of it.
I like that it's a big dung beetle.
It's a big dung beetle, or like a June bug or something that just goes... Yeah, I thought that was so cool. The mom is the queen of the nightmares, is what I wrote here. She's eating bugs. She's got these like truffles that are like delicious delicacy bugs.
Also, the only thing she eats in the entire movie,
Yeah.
every meal that she made, she didn't eat, didn't touch a plate.
Just only
She's
bugs.
like, you want some bugs?
And this is where I'll say that a rewatch is required for this, because I want to see if there's bugs in like every scene now, because of how bugs become sort of the focal
Well, I mean,
point.
it is ingrained in like the window panes, and it is ingrained at the beginning when she's like stomping down the bugs, and then we have the
seems
slugs.
like something that will probably be everywhere.
It's constant.
But even like when they're in the town, in the shop, like if you look around, there's little like in the corner.
Oh, maybe.
But it might even be something like the curtains in the kitchen might have little bugs on them or something, like
very small details.
And when the mom stands up off the couch here and kind of like mutates, she kind of
has like her full like bodice like back moment, and she's like spider,
she doesn't go
maybe
full bug here, but she goes like halfway, like middle morph. But she basically becomes like Cruella de Vil, is what I sort of...
So
oh yeah, she does look like
long
Cruella,
neck,
yeah.
shrunken face, yeah.
The other
bony features,
but she hasn't gone full spider lady.
Spider Queen.
Spider Queen. The other mother is the beldam. That's what I wrote here. In this room, there are 3 ghosts. They did not make it. Oh yeah, sorry. Coraline gets thrown into a room.
Yeah, because she tries to escape, and other mother is like, absolutely not. Throws her through a mirror, again, looking glass, right, between 2 parallel worlds. Throws her in, and then like crazy ghost story stuff. You think you've seen enough creepy things in this movie, and then you get to this scene, and you're like, oh no, you still surprise me, and I'm actually more freaked out now. Like, why did you do that?
So these kids kind of reminded me of the 3 kids from the Nightmare on Elm Street, but if those freaky kids from Nightmare
Before Christmas,
if like... those 3 kids from Nightmare Before Elm Street,
they're the kids from the Nightmare Before Elm Street.
Had been morphed into horrible ghosts, because that one...
It was also the same face shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The one ghost with the open mouth.
Yeah.
Was like
it was Catherine O'Hara's What's her name?
The Nightmare Before Elm Street.
I mean, it would have been pretty great if they got Danny Elfman,
Paul
Catherine
Rubens,
O'Hara, like to do the voices.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're not
Still
supposed to
good,
be
though.
kooky, crazy, comical little
But they are
psychopaths.
supposed to be horrifying. Like it's
I
really
know, but
interesting
so
too, the fact
to
that
make
their
it more
faces
horrifi-
don't move.
But it's more
just
horrifying
voices.
that it's voiced by children. If they had
Yeah.
adults doing childish voices, it's more comedic than it is.
Yeah, it'd make it more whimsy than it needed to be.
And also, one of them was supposed to be the sister of the grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More importantly.
But they basically, what's up, Churro Smash? They basically outline this situation, and they task Coraline with escaping and finding their eyes because
You've got to find our eyes.
they got tricked and groomed and freaked and turned into
Right?
ghosts.
Like all of them talk about like how their parents didn't listen to them or like they weren't cared for and somebody came out of nowhere who molded themselves into anything they needed to be and they fell for it and they lost their eyes and they still didn't win.
And
They
Steve,
still got locked away and tossed away for the next one.
They got black phoned.
I was just gonna say, Steve, you're gonna hate this, but you know what I've noticed about this scene? It was the Black Phone film.
But you
which is a
know, we all know
horror
that
movie for
Coraline's arm is mint.
adults. That's true. Coraline's got the mint arm, and just that one kid who was his only friend wanted to. You know what? Go watch Black Phone. It's fucked up.
Go watch our episode of Black Phone. It's a
Yes.
great episode.
It's a great episode. It's very funny. It's very
Disturbing.
Put the kids to bed, as I like to say. Don't put the kids in a Black Phone style situation.
No.
Why be
Jail.
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 This is what I was. This is why I didn't kind of spoil it earlier because this was affected me so much. But when Coraline's like rapidly trying to escape, she sort of gets pulled through the door by Wybie, who's there to help her escape.
Yeah.
But Wybie,
Oh,
face
it's so messed up.
is sewed into a smile, which is
Yeah.
that's not for kids. That's almost as not for kids as Forcible having giant yabos in a kids movie.
That's like that particular scene where like he just yanks her out and you already immediately feel like something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you just see his face, like they just linger on it for that one moment where you just see the stitches lining it up into a smile. And I'm like, are we watching Saw for kids?
Exactly.
What are we
Coraline
doing?
has fully lost her innocence
Yeah.
at this point and is just like, okay, let me get that for you, and like undoes
Yeah.
the.
Well, this is like what we have said a couple times is that these movies are essentially horror movies for children.
Yeah.
And-
this and Paranorman especially.
And
But
you
also
know, like,
kids love horror. Like I've always loved it when I
but
was a kid.
there's always
we need
a
a
horror
little
movie.
bit.
There's a horror movie that you see too early that's too scary, right?
Mhm.
And I think this is like the perfect in between you seeing that movie that's too scary and everything else that you see before it. This is like a really good sort of gateway for like an 8 or 9-year-old to like prep themselves mentally for like what horror movies.
This is
can
a
be.
modern version.
I just got Courage the Cowardly Dog a lot, and I was like, Nightmares Forever. I will watch it again tomorrow night.
Right.
If I didn't watch RoboCop when I was 8 like a fucking idiot, it's a situation where like Ninja Turtles 1, which didn't break my brain, but is equally as violent, but more skewed for a general audience.
Well, I feel like E.T. is a good one.
E.T. is a good
Yeah,
example.
also
Just fuck
super
you up.
creepy.
Yeah.
This movie sort of has that vibe where most of it is fine, but even an adult is going to go, "What the hell is this?"
It's the way they set the tone
Yeah.
in every single shot and every scene. Like it is so perfectly crafted to make you feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's the same with like the whole soundtrack is basically filled with gibberish
True,
music
and it's very like,
that is like very
Yeah.
fairy tale-esque.
Like,
And it kind of
sitting is the
it also kind of sounds like Lemony Snicket's Unfortunate Events, like the Jim Carrey one. That soundtrack is incredible, but it's very much like bells and chimes that are in minor keys and feel dissonant. It's
I get a
very,
bit of a
very good.
Danny Elfman vibe with this. I'm not saying like
Yeah.
they tried to emulate it perfectly, but that's where my my head went. Tim in the chat says it's the movie that takes its audience seriously with its darker elements, which is a really fucking good point, dude.
Absolutely.
Tim, watch our Cass episodes, but watch our Tim episodes as well because couple good guests. Gotta say here on Hey Did You See This One?
We talk about some things.
We should have Tim and Cass on an episode at
That'd
the
be
same time.
fun.
I probably wouldn't get a word in edgewise. Tim in the
kicked
chat.
out. No hosts.
I'm canceling myself. I'll just put on my producer
Well, Tim
hat.
and Cass will host, and I'll guest.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Cass episode
Steven's
of the
like, I'm
best
still
says
in.
Tim. I don't know. I've been a guest since episode 14.
Yeah, I have to be the guest.
Over
I'm always
100
the guest.
episodes. That's hilarious to me. The way back through the door is a nightmare. They get back to the door, and now it doesn't have that great, like, behind you. I wanted to also mention that the animation for when the hallway expands and gets smaller is one of the coolest things, because it literally isn't. I don't think it's even stop motion.
This is so cool. They literally just made this
somebody,
tunnel and stretched out almost like a slinky.
It reminds me of those tubes when we were kids. You'd get like parachute day, and then you'd also get like tube day, right? Where you get the tube that you like pull out and you can go through the tube. You remember tube day? It has the same.
I remember Tube Day.
That sounds like
also
a
like with the big like
situation.
parachute thing that like you would like. It was all the different colors, and you would sit under it.
You pull the tube out, put the tube into the parachute. And you do pull the parachute down, and be like
you did like obstacle courses with this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's impressive.
I never had tube day. No tube day for me.
Tube day.
I had parachute day for sure.
You're a couple years younger than me, so you probably got like go to the computer room.
Yeah, and play Math Circus for as long as
I
you
love
want.
Math Circus.
They were like one computer per school.
I was also that kid who was like too good at Math Circus, but not even because I was good at math, just because I memorized all the answers.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
We're the same. I just want to go back really quickly. So you were saying you were like, she goes back through the tunnel thing, but she also, when she does go back and escapes with YB's help back into the real world, she also realizes that her parents are no longer there.
Right.
And she looks everywhere, is terrified. She has like, oh, it's so sad, but so cute, where she like has this moment. She tucks herself into her parents' bed and like sets up the pillows of them and like puts her mom's neck brace on top of the pillow and just like cries because she's alone.
That was
so
the misty
sad.
moment for me. Yeah.
So
I was
sad.
like, my eyes are reacting in an odd, like I'm having an allergic reaction to this movie.
Yeah, it was tough, but like real, right? Like kids feeling alone. They're like, I just want my parents. I've always wanted my parents here. And
there is like a
here.
comforting feeling of like knowing that there are like two safe people on either side of you and you're sleeping between them, right?
It's like when you're a kid and you get woken up by nightmares and you're like, what do? I crawl into my parents' bed because I'm scared. I just need something to be there.
I would just scream as loud as I could.
Yeah, I did that a lot with spiders in my room. I was like, Dad, come kill it. I'll just watch it.
That was happening even. I didn't recognize that she like set the pillows up. That's like a multi.
She puts like her dad's glasses on one pillow and then the neck brace on the other, and then just cries and falls asleep.
Because from my point of view, it's like that. She runs in and gets under the covers and pulls the covers over and sets up the pillows under the covers to be as comfortable as possible. But now that you mention it, I realize that she did some stuff before she got under the covers. But that's a really good observation. I think you have to watch this movie multiple times to maybe get, because I wasn't like on my phone for this movie. I was in at this point.
Yeah. But it does take a couple watches because it happens so fast. Yeah. Like there is so much in it. That
she kisses them and says goodnight, Mom and Dad.
And then she cries. And then she next day wakes up and she's like, looking through the car, and she's like, I'll go talk to my neighbors and see if maybe they've seen anything. And then these burlesque girls are like, well, I don't know, but let me like.
We are also technically certified witches.
Container. And she's like, this will help you find things. She's like, this is, I don't know, some other kind of trinket. And that helps her in her actual quest.
They pull out their like secret candy bowl.
Yeah. Like 1967.
Yeah,
or
they
like
all have different years, which is like, so each one of those bowls is significant, right? In some
to their story.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the whole thing. They're so stuck in multiple time periods that they can't let
go
of.
You skipping ahead a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
There's a little bit. Because what happens is she goes back at this point. She sees the grocery bag and the food is old.
It's rotted, yeah.
And
oh yeah, sorry, I did skip that
I
part.
thought
But
that there
yes,
was going to be a weird time travel thing, but there isn't. It's just sort of
no,
a
just her
alternate
parents.
universe
They're
in the
just
original
gone.
universe. The other thing I wanted to mention about that before we get to what you guys are saying, fully valid. I just wanted to
go back.
fit some stuff in. YB wants the doll back because the grandmother wants it back.
Yes. And he's like, oh, she got mad at me. I shouldn't have taken that. Also, I'm pretty sure this is really messed up and you shouldn't have that.
And she tries to explain everything to YB, and his immediate reaction is like, what are you talking about?
I don't like this. You're crazy.
And bounces.
Yeah.
That's when they go see Spink and Forcible, and that's when...
Well, we should also say that the reason that she wants the doll back is that she probably knows that
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous and that it's spying on her.
Yeah.
And there's probably other dolls that she has as well for like other potential children, and that's probably the reason that she's like, no kids allowed, because I have these dolls that look like your child that this witch has been sending through portals in time or whatever.
Yeah. And also, like, just even YB going into that house, like, Coraline is like, listen, I have answers for you. Come to this door, and like drags him through the house. And he was like, please don't bring me in here.
I need to get out of here.
I can't be here. My grandma told me I shouldn't be in here. Just give me the doll and I'm going to go. You sound like a crazy person.
There might be a YB doll that his grandma has, you know?
Exactly.
Well, because like the beginning of the movie is the witch making the doll, right? The opening credits. And she sends it through the window and it floats off into time.
Yeah.
And we know that doll was given to probably the twins, YB's grandma, and they've had that since they were kids. So YB's grandmother has been waiting for Coraline to show up since she was a little girl, having this Coraline doll since she was a girl, which is a very Neil Gaiman type thing, like some crazy, I've had this doll since I was 7 years old and I'm now
and I had
90.
no idea what it meant, and now we're here. Yeah, very cool.
So you set that up like you're going to say so many more things, but I'm glad that I can introduce the thing that you guys were talking about, which was the toffee. They get down there, Coraline's like, what the frig is going on? Forcible, or I don't know I think Spink is the one
Spink is the one that I think is actually maybe a fortune teller walker, and she's like, I'll read your tea leaves and give you actual information.
She's the little
Forcible
one.
is like, I don't know, it's a show. I have to see her.
And
she's forcibly making you
showing
listen
things
to
you don't
everything she
know
says.
about.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
the performer
I do
versus
look.
creator moment.
Oh, Jason loves giant old women boobs.
They're just so big for no reason.
And like somehow don't look that bad. The use of the old toffee to give Coraline
Jail.
help.
Jason needs to go to old
Jail.
Is that my
girls' jail.
cancellation moment of the week?
This is
that
it, yeah.
Okay.
We found it.
That helps.
Oh, God. I was gonna say, what's the opposite of black phoning?
me like giving you a little bit too much info, I think.
Yeah.
Coraline goes to sleep that night. Oh, sorry. They drill into the candy, and it reveals that there's this, like, they call it the key, but it's sort of like a looking glass thing.
Well, it looks like a Ouija board. What do they call it? Like a planchette or something?
Yeah, it's basically the sunglasses.
It looks like a little jade planchette. Yeah, for sure.
It's like the sunglasses from They Live.
For those who don't know what a planchette is, it's the piece on a Ouija board that moves around over top of the letters and numbers.
I thought you were going to react.
Triangle.
I thought you were going to react to that so much more, Steve.
What did you say?
I said it's like the sunglasses from They Live.
Oh,
A little bit.
Right? Yeah, I guess. Because it does, when you look through it, everything's in black and white.
And you see like the things that you're trying to reveal.
You're looking for, yeah.
I wonder if that's a reference a little bit, because this movie seems to have a lot of references.
Well, she did look at the cat at one point, and it was Keith David, and he said, now here's a man who loves his meatballs.
Can I just do a very quick side note? Have you guys ever played Franbo?
Fanbo?
Franbo? It's an indie game, like kind of like click point adventure puzzle game. No? You should play it. It's a studio that I really love, and also very much ties into Coraline, very Alice-y, very dark, twisted. Look up Franbo, and also Little Misfortune while you're at it. Anybody who's watching, incredible, very short puzzle
Also,
games.
Little Nightmares, made by Henry
Also, Little
Selick.
Nightmares.
Yeah.
I just needed to throw it out before I forgot, because oof.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Also, Franbo has a little black cat named Midnight who guides her around her world. in between pills and no pills.
Crazy, because like I've met so many people in the world who've had black cats, and I've never met anyone who named it Midnight before. That's a pretty good name.
It is really good. I just have a little Luna, but that's because I love Sailor Moon. So
I mean, Midnight and Luna are the obvious choices for.
I had 3 black cats in my life. One was Smudge, one was Obi-Wan Kenobi, who I called Ben, and the other one was Ghoulie, because she looked like a gargoyle. Her ears were weird, like they like went out to the side instead of up.
Cute. Yeah. Chad wants a black cat named Majora.
That's pretty good. Tim's cat's nickname is Sister Midnight, which is fun.
Sister Midnight. Okay, we
of
found
course it is Tim. What are you, the coolest man alive? You freaking
sounds like a boss you would fight in Elden Ring.
Sister Midnight.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's an abyssal name right there.
Yeah.
Coraline goes to sleep that night. The cat comes back. The parents are trapped in a mirror, which Cora breaks.
Yes.
Of course, not
in the mirror.
Really,
I think she was trapped in, right? Like I think it's the same one in the house.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
Like where she was trapped with the ghost children. Then
where
she's in her own house, and she's like writing "Help us" backwards. And it's
but they're actually trapped inside of a snow globe, which.
Spoilers, Stephen.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, come on. If you didn't figure that shit out. Her mom loves snow globes.
She loves it.
How about this reveal?
Going to be the fridge.
How about this reveal?
Walk-in fridge in the basement.
I don't know. I think it's earlier that it's revealed that the dolls are spies, but right now it's like, how did my parents get wrapped up into all of this? And she finds a doll that's her parents sewed together.
Oh God!
Crazy.
Like the witch didn't even
like a Gemini moment of one half is one side.
The witch didn't even bother making a separate doll for each of them. She's like, fuck, they're the same shitty person. I'll make a.
That's actually, I never thought about that before, but it's really interesting. I feel like this is crazy. This is a theory for me, but I wonder if it's like child theories. I wonder if it's like to encapsulate childhood and wonder, you need to have a whole being. Whereas when you see parents in a lot of these type of movies where they're disenfranchised with life or they're kind of past wonder or imagination, it's not even like they're a whole person. It's like, oh, I can just take a snippet of that and a snippet of that, and it's like copy paste instead of having to actually create a person.
That's a pretty good
themselves.
Theory, but check this out.
I don't know.
Coraline doesn't know the rules of any of this, and she burns the doll.
Yeah. And the burning of the doll is one of the best animation effects in the entire movie.
Very cool.
We do that.
It doesn't look like how something would actually burn, but the way it burns is like, it looks like how you would draw something burning, you know,
like you see like individual kind of
I was gonna say
like parts curling up and
there are different colors coming out of it too is really cool.
Yeah.
And then we get a great suit up, like a Rambo style suit up moment of Coraline getting ready to go like fight the final boss.
Love a montage.
The cat can talk.
Does Rambo suit up? Doesn't he just wear a headband?
Ties his headband, puts a Bowie knife in his fucking Bowie knife holder.
He's like got the little like planchette, and she's like got her bag. She's talking to a cat. She's like, I got it.
Spinning it on one finger, like
Sorry, Batman suit.
That's what I.
That's. I'm pretty sure every time we ever see that is pretty much Rambo.
Yeah. You gotta take it to the limit.
Cat can talk again. They're back. They're gonna go back in the tunnel to go back. And he's like, you know, this is a cat. You know, this is a trap, don't you? As she's going through the tunnel back to the world, she sees the mom, who is obviously. That's when it's like, you know, this is a trap, right? And as soon as she gets on the other side, she hugs the mom. The mom reveals to be the monster. The dad also comes in, and he's a pumpkin. Momster.
Yeah.
Well, she has like, I think at this point, like her whole like porcelain broken face and actual spider mode, or is that later?
It's coming, but I think
she's not in full spider mode, but she's still nearly there.
She's more spider than she was too. I think there's like.
It gradually kind of.
I think once the floor cracks, like her legs come out and she starts to go like into.
Gross.
This is what I want to talk. We mentioned this earlier when you guys mentioned food at the beginning of the episode. This sequence where it's just the mom and Coraline sitting, and she's like, "I'll make you dinner." kind of like one last time.
Yeah.
What do you want, pierogies?
Do you want like this poisoned apple or this Pan's Labyrinth Pale Man feast in front of you that you definitely shouldn't eat? What
Don't
are
eat
you
anything.
doing? Like,
Yeah.
But the animation for this is so fucking good. The oil in the pan sizzling.
oh yeah.
When she pours the eggs into the pan and makes like the most perfect fucking
Omelet.
I've ever seen in my life.
Of course it's gonna be
The
perfect.
sizzling
Those
of the
mushrooms,
bacon,
yeah,
the
it
mushrooms,
looked good.
Yeah, it looks.
This is like my
delicious.
argument for Ghibli movies, where it's like every time they show food, you want to like jump into your screen and devour it.
Eat it. Yeah.
Final Fantasy games
They
have
make
been
food the best.
doing this weird thing since like 12 or 13, where like the picture for the food that you're about to eat like is still clearly CGI, but it looks comically realistic.
Oh, like Monster Hunter when like they have the
Yeah.
cats making all the food and you're like, I would devour that in a
Exactly.
second. Oh.
Final Fantasy 15 did it really well because you had a person in your party who actually it's like, I've learned a new recipe every couple hours.
Yeah.
And then he cooks it for you and it looks hyper realistic. Really interesting animation for this. I mentioned the all that stuff. So Cora challenges. I will say that I called her Cora through this whole thing, and I'll never
You did.
forget.
I
that
knew
it-
what you were talking about.
No. I mean through my whole,
I also-
my whole notes because I don't want to have to write it every time. But that made it very easy for me to remember that her name is Coraline by just calling her Cora for short, which nobody else
I
in this
just
whole movie
said-
does.
Bedlam, which is not the right word. I'm thinking of like I think like Sweeney Todd, like Bedlam Asylum.
Every time you said
I'm like,
Bedlam, I was
no,
thinking of the
it's
Mars
not
Volta
right.
album, Bedlam and Goliath, but also a
Yeah.
Bedlam is like a fight, like a battle.
Just bell down.
But I didn't want to. I didn't
Just
want to
witchy.
correct you.
No, correct me. What? It's like if I have food in my teeth, you tell me I'm wrong. Like just let me know.
I would
It was-
never. You're gonna
Immediately
wear that
call me out.
spinach like a badge of honor.
I like that. No, what were you saying right before that? Sorry, I interrupted you. Coraline was doing
Oh
something.
no, I was gonna say she challenges Beldam or other mother to a game.
Yes, making a deal with a
Yes.
witch. Never do that.
Nope.
Crazy. You're
I
gonna
bet
lose.
I could probably make a deal with a witch and it'd be all right.
You want to make a deal with me, Steven?
Oh shit! I didn't know that I was gonna be
I'll
put on
light
the
my
spot
candles.
like this.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what. In exchange for Steve staying and sewing his eyes into buttons, Steve has to find the wonders or some shit. That's what I wrote down. I didn't
I'm the
find
fully-
wonders
and
of
then
the
I wrote-
world.
and then
the
I
seven
wrote,
wonders.
Cass, explain it. I wrote that in my notes.
Oh God. I have to explain the seven wonders of the world?
No, just the wonders of like this situation. They're talking about basically the MacGuffins here, right? The eyes, or
She needs to
Yeah.
find the eyes of the ghost children
yes,
that were taken, and she needs to figure out where her parents are hidden.
right,
Yes.
yes.
It's like in exchange for me finding these things, I get my parents. If I don't find them, you can sew buttons into my eyes. That's our deal.
And it's until the giant button eclipses the moon.
Eclipse
or
the
whatever.
moon.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Which she doesn't say it's going to be a big button. She just says until the end of the
Until
night. or
night.
whatever.
Which
Yeah.
is also no, this is I said this earlier, but I think this is the right moment where it is during the daytime and she gets to go and explore during the day as the clock ticks down.
It's crazy when, I mean, it's not crazy, but it's like so
It's crazy.
satisfying when it's revealed that the eclipse is actually also a button. I was like, oh,
good.
I mean, I for some reason didn't expect that, and I should have, because I
It's right on the button.
am not a fool. Yeah, it's right on the nose, which is
That's
the button.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I like those moments of
I had the same
whimsy in this
reaction.
movie that are like, it's okay to be in this world and like have those campy moments that are like, oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course it's going to be that. You don't expect, because I have made it so weird up until this point that maybe you don't expect me to just give you exactly what you want. But I'm
It's like the
no, that
crescent
was
is
it.
coming over. Oh, it's smaller. The
Wait,
crescent's
that's
really
weird.
Yeah,
small.
it's
Oh,
nice.
the second
Starting to
crescent. Oh
appear.
my god, it's a giant
It's a
button.
giant button.
It's
And
very
this is
cool.
this is the point where she walks out into the exact same garden she walked when she was so mystified by it. Wow, it's so pretty and nice. But now
not.
because of the situation she's in, This is kind of like real life when like you can see something that seems amazing, and then you see the same thing after a certain series of events, and it's a nightmare. The hearts are like droopier, like
everything is actually attacking her.
Exactly. The Snapdragon bit was just so weird. The other bluer Snapdragons kind of come out of that hovel and like capture her.
Yeah.
And
it's also kind of like the last episode Cass was on where I was talking about mushrooms, but it's the opposite of that. So when you're on mushrooms,
yeah.
Should I do another long mushroom bit? That'd be funny.
Okay, we can talk about it. Psychedelics.
No.
But I will say, I really, it gave me a lot of sympathy for the father character in this film. When he is fully controlled. He is like this pumpkin-y, gourd-like, not real, decaying kind of character.
He's falling apart. He's like a rotting pumpkin.
Apart. Yeah. And he is at the same time operating this praying mantis that used to be at the beginning of the movie something of wonder that is actively attacking Coraline. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to do this to you. She told me I had to. And in his final moments, as she's trying to avoid it, he gives her that eye. Like,
well, he's just, not operating it.
That
the same piano hands are still controlling it, right?
him.
He keeps saying like,
I don't want to do this. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know how to
stop. And he gives up the
to
MacGuffin because he's like,
he does.
With my dying breath. And then the bridge
he's like,
breaks.
This is all I can do for you. Just continue on.
And it's so horrifying when he sinks down into the water and it just like blah, 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 because it like the music like crescendos and then stops.
Yeah.
And then you watch this character that you care about die, because not only is the dad in the real world like pretty cool comparatively.
He's okay in comparison. Yeah, he's okay.
To the mom, but also this version of the dad has been trying to just like give clues the whole time.
The whole time. He's been shut up by piano hands the whole time, being like, that's too many secrets, don't say that.
Well, this is also like plays into my theory that the cat was created here and got over to the other side, right?
Yeah. Found some kind of loophole in the system.
These creatures that are created here are not like, it's not like she's seeing through their eyes like the dolls and controlling them. She's controlling them through other means, right? Like she created the piano to control him.
Yeah. Oh, so sad.
And then when we go see the rats, they're
such a good sequence too.
They're her like physical like she physically created them out of the mice or out of the rats to turn into
same with
mice.
The vampire dogs.
The vampire dogs, she's controlling those, and then like the dancers are in some sort of like weird cocoon.
That's like a crazy thing. I always saw this in a weird way, and I might have been reading it weird. I don't know, but it gives me like also like a twin moment in a womb. Like they're like in this little shell of protectiveness, like they are there forever together
to
like
stay young.
Twin sisters, and if anybody inserts themselves into that moment, like the way that they are when they're older, they're like, no, get out. This is my protected space. You cannot be here.
Why don't we get to that? Tim in the chat says, combining a spider witch spinning a web with sewing to set traps for its prey is great. I agree
Control,
with that.
grooming, poison-based things that just shut down and control.
You were fully right, Cass. The next scene is literally she walks back into the theater and she goes up to the cocoon, which is like it looks like a twisted candy. It looks like one of the toffees but in its candy wrapper.
But they have like a light behind it, almost like, I don't know if you guys have ever had this. I grew up in London, so we had like farming agriculture things, and you would look inside like an egg, and it would show kind of what's happening inside. Absolutely. It was the same imagery, right? Of like a light being shone through.
Sonogram of a womb.
Yeah, and you just see like kind of silhouettes of things inside of it.
She uses the eye to look at it. She sees the MacGuffin inside of it, another one of the eyes. It's spanking forcible nightmare creatures, though, who come out sort of twisted together. And she does
They look like those marshmallow twists.
Yeah,
they do.
I agree.
The same coloring too, like the like white,
pink and green.
Like to the point that you're like, white. I know what that arm tastes like when I saw it coming at them.
The whimsy, Willy Wonka of it all.
The Willy Wonka of it all.
Yeah.
The thing that's great here is she does some like Metroid shit almost, like she does or more video like Zelda video game stuff where she, in a quick moment, like this is the weird part about this sequence where every time she is encountered with one of the like I gotta get the thing, she just does it. There's no like long drawn out like 15-minute.
She knows at that point. She's like, I have a mission. This is what I do. I get the thing.
She sees the bats as she walks in. She's like, those aren't great. She sees the two sisters spun into a candy wrapper. She's like, that sucks equally.
Yeah.
But
I gotta do it.
And then she's like, oh, I know what's gonna happen here. So she just ducks, and the bats fly in like the keys from Zelda and just kill the sister. She gets the MacGuffin, and then
we go to the circus with the rat.
Yes.
Rat.
Nightmare Babinski is horrible. It's revealed.
I did this exact thing in D&D, and I didn't realize I stole it from this movie when I did it. I was like, oh, okay.
So good, but I also think it's not in itself an original idea. Like, I think this has been like kind of puppeteering for like many stories along generations.
Yeah.
And again,
it's just unsettling, I guess, is what it is, right? Like a suit of clothing that is seemingly operating in an unnatural way, then being revealed to be being operated by something horrifying
is a puppet, which is manipulation, which is the other mother. Like, it is absolutely her vision of what that would be. And if Coraline hadn't already kind of figured out everything at that point, maybe would have fallen for it. Like, it seems like to us so obvious, but like a kid, maybe not.
To tie to Zelda too, this is a boss that's like a common trope in Zelda games, and then also in Twilight Princess, you literally fight. What it is it's supposed to be a Link who died in the past, but comes back as a suit of armor, and that's what this whole thing reminded me of, like kind of fighting a past person that you knew. And this is like almost Babinski's final form. Well, it's not, but it's his like nightmare form, which was.
I just
and
picture
all
like
of the rats have buttons and
like the Babinski, like the title comes on the screen.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. The amazing Babinski comes across the screen. It either shows up like, stylized like a Street Fighter game, or it shows up like Zelda. Yes, that's really good.
But so I would like to say that I figured that these were just her removing her magic from them, right? Like, this is what they're like, because she's created these things, right?
Absolutely.
They exist
it's
in her world. So she's removing herself from the equation and being like, okay, if you want to go find them, but I'm not going to be there to make everything nice anymore. And it's going to look exactly how it looks without my intervention.
I like that.
And so they're going into how these things actually are, where it's like she maybe freshly created the dad, but like the sisters and Babinski, those are like the nightmares in the basement and the attic that she created a long time ago, and that's what they're like when she's not there to like fill them with the magic or the life that she wanted to show Coraline, right?
I really like that, because I feel like this is one of those things I love about movies like this, where we get to like kind of talk about what we took away from how it was built. For me, I always thought it was maybe Coraline just learning along the journey and being able to see into it past the looking glass. But I also like the fact that, yes, the other mother has made these things. Maybe it's a scare tactic, or maybe it's the fact that her dimension is withering away with every single piece it's taken. So does she have as much control anymore? Right. Is it that version? It's very cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. For some reason, I felt like, the parts where she would create would feel fresh and real, and they would slowly rot away. And like the stuff that she's hiding, the attic and the basement, it's been there for a long time.
It molds and it like gets gross.
And she gets rejuvenated by Coraline being there. So her magic is kind of like being reinvigorated, and she can pump all this energy into these two things that she's created a long time ago and then create this new stuff outside.
Yeah. And she hasn't eaten in a while. So she's hungry and needs power. And bugs can't really make all of it.
And then when it's revealed that it's a bunch of rats in a Babinski costume, she's like blasted out. She's blasted out onto the fire escape. Like, she almost fucking dies here.
Yeah.
She hits that railing so hard that it bends. And then the whole fire escape falls over.
And the button moon is right there.
And the button moon is full moon. And she kind of bounces when she hits the ground, which was like, I was like, oh my God. Like,
it was violent.
It was very violent.
Very violent.
It's just a dream, guys. Don't worry.
Don't worry about it.
And
it's not real.
So she thinks that all is lost. It's sort of that like, well, I couldn't do it. Eclipse is happening. I didn't get the final MacGuffin. But then Keith David, the cat, I think that this cat's name is Kitty. I don't know if we really talked about it, but the only time I've ever...
No, it's named Keithy.
Keithy. Keithy. The cat shows up with the rat and bites.
The mouse, still in mouse form, rips it to shreds.
And the
rat
thing falls
innards of sand.
He's like, I'm not sure if I mentioned I hate rats. Or he says something along those lines. Yeah.
That's exactly what he says, I'm pretty sure. And then when she gets the 3 MacGuffins in her hand, kind of like Paranorman, the world just unravels around her and becomes sort of infinite white. And
the only thing you have left to do is go inside and deal with the monster, the final boss.
And we do get this is where we get the full reveal of Other Mother, who is a full spider at this point. She's the one with the hands from the beginning. I know that we knew this ourselves, but if you didn't know, that opening sequence, we see her Edward Scissorhands like hands,
embalming tools,
Yeah, she's turning dolls inside out to create new dolls, which is
And while she has the 3 eyes, the part of the deal was to get the parents. So we sort of get this thing where she steals the Other Mother steals the beldam, steals the looking glass. What's the thing from Ouija board called?
A planchette?
A planchette?
Planchette.
A planchette? Kate Planchette? They get the Kate
She's like, you can't use this anymore. Into the fire.
And fires it up, it burns immediately, because I guess it's made of toffee. The key, it's burned, tricks the Other Mother to open the door to sort of get her attention off the fact that she recognizes that the parents are in the snow globe. Actualized spoiler, not a spoiler anymore. I know you guys said that earlier.
Yeah.
She
throws the cat.
Throws the cat as a weapon.
So good.
I don't know. Like, I felt like I missed something at this point
because so many things are happening.
Like, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, and she threw the cat, and I was like, that must have been part of the plan, right? Like earlier, Keith David was like, if anything goes bad, just throw me at it.
Just a thing that happened. Can I tell a really fun side story on this? Stephen, I don't think you've ever played our Hunter campaign with us. Oh, no, you did for the one episode that you were there when you were dealing with the Wendigos. Yeah. Our friend Scott used to play Hunter way back in the day, and he told us of one of the campaigns he did where basically you're like a human person fighting supernatural. And someone in his campaign threw a cat at a werewolf just because they had nothing else to throw. And then they had to roll damage, and the cat crit on every single roll to the point that the werewolf died. And they were like, I guess cats should be thrown at every enemy that we ever face.
You guys all emptied your silver bullets out. You're like, fuck silver bullets.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
go
we just need cats. Just throw cats at things.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it's very funny to see that weirdly reflected in
Coraline. So the next episode was like, doodle ding ding, doodle ding ding ding. And you guys had sacks full of cats over your backs.
Yeah. They're like full like catapults.
Right,
Catapults.
Yeah.
Oops.
So we get a final battle on a cool web sort of thing that doesn't go
cool.
Like this, I thought was too quick.
I wanted it to be longer.
Yeah,
that whole web fight
the
was.
The set piece was so cool. But anyway, Coraline
it's probably
escapes.
better than Madam Web. Am I right?
Well, we haven't seen
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
It doesn't look great. I could be wrong.
4.5 out of 10. Coraline escapes. She
4.5 out of 10 is not that bad.
No, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
honestly,
could be worse.
That's from IGN too. IGN sucks. Also, they give everything as good as 7. Coraline escapes through the tunnel. She makes it to the tunnel. She's going through the tunnel. She's trying to close the door on the first side of the tunnel, and the ghosts sort of all appear and help her, which was a cool little moment.
So
good. She thinks that she forgot the snow globe, but she didn't. It's broken on her side. When she gets to the other side, she does close the door and lock it. And they do, so a lot of like superhero movies from the 80s and 90s, a lot of horror movies do this where you just get one little scene of like, okay, we're fine and we're done, and a hand comes up and then dies, like in Ninja Turtles.
This is not that. You know? We continue the story.
The monster comes back for 2 seconds, but it's just like, oh, I'm dead. But no, we get an additional 10 minutes of
just hand.
Just hand.
Like the hand is the villain now, and like we never see her fully formed again. It's just the hand trying to drag her back to hell
and
basically.
Get the key.
Get the key, yeah.
To get more children. Quick question. I feel like I remember this, but again, I watched it recently, but it's so much of a movie for me to take all of it in. There's, I think, a moment where Coraline is dealing with the beldam and the cat, and she has a moment of YB's grandmother's sister come in being like, she's not going to give up. Like, you will not win this deal.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Is that also connected to that's the children in the tunnel too? Like they kind of
that's before
reiterate
she leaves.
that.
Yeah.
And then later on, I think maybe right after she kind of gets out, she
gets out and
she
then
goes to bed and has like a Vincent Van Gogh Starry Night scene.
Yeah.
No, that's
the ghost children,
end, isn't it? That's the very
end. No, not the very end. It's before the hand comes back and actually tries to attack with like YB and getting the key and everything.
Oh yeah, no,
visit her in a dream.
Yeah.
So here's what I have written: the parents are covered in snow and they don't remember anything. She's like, "You're covered in snow. You were literally in a snow globe." And they're like,
but then they also like the snow melts and it dries up like
just so fast.
Like, I wanted you to have these gloves.
Yeah,
I got it for you.
Yes.
So that's
then she's only got one glove on at the end, like a real MJ move. And I was like, why is she only wearing one? And
she looks at
covering the hand.
Just like doing
UFC
with a single glove.
Covering the hand that had the poison oak on it. So I'm like, it's covering her one kind of like parallel into that world. Like the thing that brought her there in the first place was the poison oak. The poison oak is the poison seeping into her mind, and it was all a dream, guys.
Yeah. Whoa, that's pretty heavy to think about. The poison oak.
I don't think that poison oak causes hallucinations.
No, but the poison oak was a representation of the poison, of her mind being poisoned by all of this. The kitty shows back up. Cora puts the eyes under the pillow and frees the kids. They said that Beldan is still alive. This is when we get the Starry Night moment.
Right.
But I also wonder why they use that specifically. I've never been able to puzzle it out. But of all the things to use, it's Starry Night and like angel wings, similar to like the dogs.
Cool. My also had a thing where I was like, when they appear at first as like one being before they split off into the 3 angels, and I was like, that's almost an accurate biblical representation of an angel.
It seems like a nativity scene almost.
Now that's a Bible.
So they explain the situation basically that they're gonna, the Belden's still alive ostensibly. We see the hand that got cut off make it through the door to the other world while they're explaining this.
Yeah.
The Belden still wants the key. Coraline is like, okay, I have to destroy the key to the other dimension. So she makes a bolt for the well that we were talking about. Also, the mushroom ring around the well, so cool.
I love that.
It's called a fairy ring.
Yeah, of course.
It does
I knew that it was a thing. Thank you. It's very fey, as you said.
Very fey.
She makes it up there, and we get a really cool like final battle. And Final Fantasy games do this a lot, where you have like the big final battle, and then you get some little like more
snippet
cinematic battle. When you fight Sephiroth, you fight him in like 4 phases.
You have to fight his wig afterwards.
Yeah. It's like, final. You just do the very, very end. You just do Omni Slash. You just press a button, and in Final Fantasy X, you can't die. You just keep pressing attacks.
It's like Barrett, and he like flicks his cigarette at Sephiroth's wig, and it
Sephiroth. Sephiroth. So anyway,
sorry, I didn't mean to ruin that.
No,
it's okay, we had a musical moment.
I like
ruin or make better.
But they do have the old battle next to like a ledge fight, or Wybe's trying to
right
help.
over like a cavern, basically.
Yeah,
a never-ending well. You're
this
like,
is
I don't
another
wanna fall
like
there.
last week we talked about how Hugh Jackman's character from The Missing Link is like a mega human somehow, like, and we
Hugh
didn't know
Jackman is in that movie. I know nothing about Missing Link.
You
should watch it.
Go
It's
watch
really
your
good.
podcast.
It's very good. Yeah,
You'll appreciate it.
He supports the collective weight of 2 humans other than himself and Sasquatch, who is confirmed to be 650 pounds with his
just
fingertips.
With one finger, cartoon style.
Incredible.
But why even in this is he's doing the same thing where he's like about to fall down the pit.
I thought he was going to fall because his hand gets
God,
bashed,
so did I.
and then they pan over to his other hand hanging on, so you get that like suspense moment.
Yeah.
It's so
full action
good.
moment. Yeah.
But they kind of have that tussle, and then Coraline's basically getting dragged away. It's assumed that she's going to get dragged back to the door, but she doesn't make it far. A rock just falls onto the hand. Wyman has destroyed it, saved the day. He feels like a prophecy in all this, where it's like he's like this annoying sort of soothsayer, sort of exposition dump character that is going to be worth something, but every time he's shown, he's not worth much. And I think it's great that he is the final,
he gets to have the final say in it.
The final say.
I also, this might sound kind of weird, and maybe my therapist would be very proud of me, but I feel like YB specifically feels like a character that it isn't the main part of the story, but is the healing process of every character involved in the trauma of the story.
I like that.
Because like he goes through, he's like, oh, I know this story. I've heard it before. It sounds kind of weird. Maybe this is actually messed up, but I'm going to help you deal with the big bad. And I will believe you, and I will help you fight it. And
That's great.
But he's also in a more direct way, she doesn't like him.
No, of course not. Why would you?
In the moment that she likes him is in the moment that everything is, kind of wrapped up and it's wrapped up in a bow. And like, that's the moment that he's like, now it's me and I'm here to help you. And you're like,
but he also always was.
Oh yeah,
he just didn't see it the whole time.
I mean, me personally, every time he showed up, I'm like,
I was like, ugh, you're annoying.
Yeah. No, I'm like, yay, it's my favorite character, me. That's how I felt.
I want to take 1 second.
I think it's different too. When I was younger, I was like, I am Dakota Fanning, and then I was like, oh, I'm old, and I was like, oh, I think I was annoying when I was younger.
Maybe I was the annoying.
Maybe
character.
I was sucked.
And you're like, I did often bring a periscope to a fog party.
No, we could be friends, even when I was younger. We could chill. It'd be fun.
I want to take 1 second to shout out Tim saying Sephiroth wig pop toy, like a Funko Pop that's just a Sephiroth wig.
Just the wig, but it's got legs.
And it still has the weird...
Like Cousin It from Addams Family. Just
hey, I want that Funko Pop.
That'd be cool.
No, it's got when you would get those toys that you could shine through the back. And the light would come through. So you would do it on the other side of the wig, but it would be in the wig would be hollow, and you could just see these glowing eyes of the Sephiroth wig. I should design Funko Pops.
Yeah, you got to start that right now.
That's right. So Wyman saves the day. Wyman reveals the picture of the grandmother and her sister. It was the ghost girl. They do the head sideways. I don't think they do the head sideways yet. Anyway, the moon does a full goatsy. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It does the moon. The clouds go like this.
Like the claws going.
Yeah.
We're not here anymore.
Don't look up goatsy if you don't know what it is.
Don't look at it. I don't know.
That day,
I feel like this is a blue waffle moment that we don't look into.
It absolutely is a tub girl moment. That day, the old ladies and crew put on a lemon party.
I love it.
I like that. They're like, is this pink lemonade? It's like, nah, just... Tim's like, do not look up goatsy. Do not. And he spelt it right, so he's looked it up before.
Yep, he knows. I respect that knowledge.
The mom is this much happier than she was previously. I have a whole thing to say about that in the outro.
Me too.
We'll get to it. The other thing that I love here is that Babinski knows about the other side because the mice absolutely live on both sides, just like the cat. I think mammals might have a thing
Animals, man.
Transgo's not a word. Go between transgo between both dimensions. I think trans means go, right?
Well, I think it's all like that is a very common thing in like multiple fairy tales and also witchcraft and a lot of like supernatural spiritual stories of animals being the only thing that can see both sides, right? Like I see my cat Luna, black cat, in the middle of the night looking into a corner. And I'm like, that's a ghost. I don't want to look at it right now, but you deal with it. I trust you. Like they can just like, I don't know. It's a story-based element that I think is really important.
Or they just, or on the cynical side of me thinks that they can see things that humans can't, obviously, because they have a different range of sight and sound and smell. And they're just seeing like the smell of something. Like, you know what I mean? Like they can see like stink lines, I guess is the best way to put it.
Something. Or like some weird light reflected in their eyes because they see light weird.
Exactly.
All I know is that my cat tucks me into bed.
Wait, are you guys telling
me
you guys can't see the smell of a pie in the air?
No, I can see that every time.
Every time I hit my nose to it, I start to float through the air. What are you talking about?
That's a very human experience. I think everybody
goes through it. At any rate, it's assumed that they all sort of have a collective understanding of what just happened. But then we get the shot of Kitty going to the fence, just like the beginning.
Also, right before that, we have Coraline talking to Wybie, being like, hey, I've told you kind of things about your family that maybe you don't know about or you don't want to talk about, but I would really like to connect to your grandmother because I think I know the story of her sister and she deserves to know that story. And then you just see her like coming out of her gate for the first time and like kind of being a little bit grumpy and being like, oh, there's people having a party.
Have you guys seen the deleted scene? A kid. It's way more aggressive.
Well, it is way more aggressive. I've seen it.
I talked about the video game, which is great. But I did notice on YouTube there's like all the deleted scenes and it's like 9 minutes long.
I also can't imagine like dealing with a medium like this that takes so long to create to then have to delete scenes from it. You're like, that was a year of my life. Okay,
that took a long time to animate the mouth saying that word. So.
9 minutes took 9 months to make, presumably, right?
But I do like the fact that Coraline at the end is like, I want to share your sister's story. I've seen it. You're not crazy. We can discuss, and I want you to have that. And it's a healing journey at the end of it.
But
I don't know.
Speaking of, that's the end of the film, Coraline. We got through it. We only talked about it for 3 straight hours, for 1 hour and 40 minutes. We spent almost as much time talking about it as it took to make the film, which is an interesting way to look at it. I think I've kind of come around on Steve's view of like a podcast and like just say all the things that need to be said, because much like the way that they took the time to make this movie, it takes longer to talk about a thing, because it's almost like listening to this podcast is like watching the movie a couple times, because we have all these experiences going into it to get everything out of it. And that's sort of what this podcast is.
Yeah.
That said, we have a couple things we like to do before we get out of here. The credits are rolling right now, but I think we have two things we have to do before we do our final thoughts, and the first one is, of course,
if you had to pick one, what do you think the Home Alone of it all? When is the Home Alone of it all? Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone of it all? I really gotta know. When is the Home Alone of it all? When is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
And what I'll say is the Home Alone of it all for me is literally like the MacGuffin stuff. Like just when it goes into video game mode and she's just going to the end. That's what it is for me. I believe there's a little bit of discussion to be had, but, enlighten me if there's not. And, Cass, what do you think? What's your Home Alone of it all? The Home Alone of it all is, of course, the idea that in the movie Home Alone, when Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint, that's what you came to see. You came to see him destroy the bad guys. So,
well, I think this movie is very much on that level. So, like, it's kind of written into the plot of it. But I like the Home Alone of it all for me to be just the Babinski mice of what their little shenanigans were up to. Coraline had her own things that was actually her moment, but the mice, they were up to something.
You were there to see the mice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Steven.
The Home Alone of it all. For me, it's when she comes around the corner and sees other mother for the first time. That's when you're like, something's wrong here.
Tricky.
And she turns around and has button eyes. And yeah, that's when you know the movie has begun.
It lingers so long on that shot too. They're just like, look at this.
And
she's
everything,
like,
she's like, it smells so good.
buttons?
And yeah. And she's like, yeah, buttons. Exactly.
Buttons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Ooh.
That's good. This is the first time in a little while that we've all had like pretty varying ideas of that. I find that sometimes these not these Leica movies, but movies can just sort of have a very clear Home Alone of it all. But that's
This is not. Leica doesn't do that.
No, but now we're gonna play the worst show game.
The worst show game.
Now we're gonna play
of it all.
The worst
Welcome
game
to
show.
Piss Radio.
We're gonna play the worst game show in internet history.
The MPAA, everyone.
Here.
My
name-
to play Guess the MPAA.
Nice.
My name is Chad Lubinsky. Welcome to the greatest game show in internet history. Tonight we're going to play the MPAA certificate game. That is, of course, the game where we try to figure out what's the certificate rating for this. The certificate rating is, of course, the MPAA number that's given to each and every film that's rated by the MPAA. I'm going to give you the first two numbers, and you have to give me the three numbers that come after the first two numbers, just to make it extra simple for you. The first three numbers this week are 4, 5. Each of you get two guesses. Cass, you go first.
We get three numbers. I've never understood this game, but I'm gonna try.
Doesn't matter. You just gotta give me three numbers.
Is it three digits?
5
and
total.
the
Yeah.
first two, got it. 4, 6.
4, 5.
5, 6.
No, 4, 5.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I'm gonna go with 8, 7,
Lower.
1.
Lower.
It's lower, Steven. You got this.
2.
Guys, of course, it's lower. 4, 5, 3.
Lower. Okay. 186.
Steve, your final guess lower than 45186.
1, 2, 3. Damn. Son of a bitch.
We'll never
God
get it.
Damn it.
I stuffed a whole bag of jelly beans up my ass. Oh my God, he on X Games.
How many sound bites do you have? It's unacceptable.
Some of those are me speaking over it.
Nice.
The number is, of course, 45001.
Of course.
MPAA, everyone.
001?
Yeah.
Seriously? Holy shit.
Wow.
No one would ever have guessed that unless I said that first.
No.
Maybe I'll start saying that first.
Start at 1 and work your way up.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a
Good
bit of
strategy.
There is a bit of a strategy to be had here, but
I'll get it one day.
with that, nobody's ever going to get it. With that, it is now time to take this goddamn. How many hours have we gone? This is our longest episode to date by a
Is
little
it?
bit. I think so.
It's close,
I'm
but I
gonna be
think we're
posting.
That's just all right. Well, we're
4-hour
gonna
video
keep
tonight.
extending it by talking over this.
Right. Okay. This is time for our final thoughts.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Just like the beginning of the show, it is, of course, the privilege of the guest to go first. So, Cass, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the film Coraline by Leica Studios,
Okay.
directed by Henry Selick?
I have many. But for the most part, I think this is a story that everybody should see at least once in their life. I like that it is multiple fairy tales drawn into one, a la Pan's Labyrinth. But I would like to kind of wrap it all up in one quote that I found really recently from an author who was born the same year as me called Oscar Alik Ice. And the quote is, "The devil doesn't come to you with a red face and horns. He comes to you disguised as everything you ever wanted." And that is a perfect encapsulation to this film and this story of beware of what seems too good to be true. It's an important story that everybody needs to hear.
That's a way better quote than Supergirl will come to you when you're Superman or whatever the fuck that guy said at the beginning.
You can be a hero. You can be a hero. I like it.
Do you have a rating? Do you have a rating? It could be funny. It could be an actual full on.
I don't know. Rating wise, I really love this movie, but if I'm gonna give it like a 0 to 2, I'll give 2 button eyes. I'm here for it. Throw me in the tunnel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cass. Thank you, Cass. Thank you, Cass. Steve, what's your final thoughts for the film Coraline?
Well, like every Leica movie we've talked about so far, this movie is amazing. It's going to be amazing to you probably for a different reason than it is to me or to Jason or to Cass or to anybody that watches it. The movie can mean so many things, and it can also mean so many things at different points in your life, which not a lot of movies can do that. You can watch The Mummy at the age of 12 and think this movie is the best movie ever made, and still think that at the age of 24 or 34 or 44, but you're going to think that for the same reason. There's not going to be a difference in those watchings. You're always going to like The Mummy for the same reason. Coraline, you'll watch it at different points in your life and you'll appreciate it for different reasons. And I think that if you've never seen it because you think it looks like a kid's movie, then, maybe give it a chance. And if you've never seen it because you think it's too spooky, then what are you, a fucking gay baby? Where? Sucky. Just kidding.
I was on mute, but I was laughing the whole time. I'm so sorry.
I was thinking of a way to bring it back, but
it's good.
It's called a callback.
It's a callback. If I had to give this movie a rating, I would give it you know what? I'm going to do a quote as well, Cass. It's my favorite part is when Keith David curls up on the bed and he says, "Now here's a man who loves his meatballs."
It's a good quote.
I liked this a lot. I did like this one. Hey-o, I did it. Nice. I did the thing. I was really amazed how much they were able to fit into 1 hour and 34 minutes. It's all good stuff. The story was really fun. Plays it a lot like a horror adventure, but for kids. The score was very good too. The whole thing feels like Tim Burton in a lot of ways, but I liked its... I like that it's Selick, as he should get his flowers for his great visions as well. I fully wrote that down, still thinking that. Yeah. So my bad. I've been educated. I think it's kind of strange the movie ends with a video gamey MacGuffin but as a Zelda fan, it was super interesting. There are a lot of influences here. Clearly, Alice in Wonderland springs to mind. I think my major gripe is everyone seemed to learn a lesson or come out on some other side better, except for the mom barely budged. Now, I'll just say that the mom who was the focal point of the whole thing, everybody else around here changed as a character, where she basically was the same at the end as she was at the beginning. She didn't I'm now going to open my heart to my daughter. She revealed she got these gloves, and she was a little bit kinder in that end scene. And this much. And
I don't think
that's the one problem that I have with this movie.
That's one problem.
I think it's just personally me reacting to a story. I think the story is what it is, and that's totally
she wasn't at all kinder. That's the thing. She wasn't kinder.
But it's like the childhood vision of her being
But
kinder.
you thought that she was kinder in contrast to
like,
her mom being an evil, horrible monster. So like you're seeing her as
what's
a
your
little
reality? Right?
and she's a little bit
Comparison.
kinder, but it's like you're seeing her as a little bit kinder. She wasn't kinder. She was the same. She was consistent the entire movie.
That's true.
I don't know I haven't read the book, which I should.
And I think
but I think that the story of that, from my understanding of hearing other people's perspectives of reading the novel, is that like, oh, kind of like be careful what you wish for. But watching this movie, especially as an adult, in like the last like couple of months that I watched it, it was like I don't think anything has changed. Coraline just went through something really scary and is now latching on to another thing that is still toxic, that is not healed, that has not changed. She's just scared. And it feels weird. I don't get like an actual like reverie from all of that. It doesn't happen.
I guess to put it in perspective a little bit, like the dad doesn't change that much either, but he was also a little bit warmer. But they
were just more stressed.
At the beginning of this movie, my whole thing was like, oh, the mom's gonna have some sort of enlightenment and she's gonna realize that she should treat her daughter better. But no, she stays the same. And I guess it's like I felt like that feeling you feel from like an abusive relationship where I got like drip fed a little bit of good,
like love bombed, and then
but not even love bombed, just the mom like barely cracks half a smile at that last scene, and it wasn't good enough for me. Anyway,
it wasn't good enough for me either.
Anyway, that's like my only real gripe. I don't know if it is a gripe. It might have been intentional. Neil Gaiman.
It might have just been the story.
Because I'm coming for your brains tonight, both of you.
Neil, oh God, fucking Freddy's after me again. Neil Gaiman was clearly doing something with writing the character that way. So
yeah, it is. I think this story was always meant to be dark. There was no light to it. It's kind of like, have you guys seen Mama? It's one of my favorite horror movies.
Don't spoil
Moth Mama.
I won't spoil it, but I love that movie a lot, and I haven't watched it in years, but I still love it. The ending of that movie was very bittersweet to me, and there was no like true happy ending, and I feel like Coraline has no true happy ending. Yeah. It's just like maybe a light sprinkle of like sugar powder for a moment. And then I don't know what happens after.
Which is like for a kids movie, you have to have that, right? Like it's not meant to
sell
be.
It, maybe
it's not meant to be like now you're in paradise. It's like
you're not.
Paradise is a false thing that you should never ever dream of because it's going to be horrifying.
Yeah, when you get don't trust it.
At any rate,
so my point, I just wanted to make one last point before we get the heck out of here.
I still have some things.
She isn't better. She's never going to get better.
No.
She just is the exact same. She's consistent the entire movie. And she just seems better because of the fact that she's not trying to kill you anymore. That's it. I guess what the bettering is that you're back in Grey life.
The mom wasn't trying to kill her. She was just like kind of absent.
But like, is that not kind of killing a spirit? Is killing a soul?
Yeah.
And also,
I wasn't talking about the other mother. I'm talking about just the base mother.
Mom?
I know, but I'm talking base mother in comparison to other mother seems better because other mother is now gone and not scary anymore. Other mother seems...
That was my biggest problem because the focal point was the fact that she goes to this alternate universe and things seem so much better for a minute that like here's the linchpin for me. When they woke up from their trance, even though they were like Coraline, please save us, they had to have been conscious of that in that moment.
Oh my God! Right? Is this the first time that after the final thoughts we get
during the final thoughts? They had to have been conscious about trying to escape because they were fully aware being stuck in a mirror and being stuck in a snow globe, but they forgot all of that because of like the magic, right? So it kind of frustrated me that they didn't retain any of that.
But why would they? After they've been consumed, what do you have left?
Also, it was all a dream.
Just memory.
But
Stephen, I will say, like, I totally agree with you. Like, watching it again, like, as fully grown adult, I feel like it was like we got the first mirror of escapism, and then we realized that is horror, and then we go back and we're like, oh, now this is escapism, but it's not. Like, it is all a reflection of the exact same thing just one is slightly heightened in stakes,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, but it still does affect, and nothing does change. Those parents don't change.
So
they
I think
just had one moment of maybe goodness and they got a book signed or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's it.
I think
like
that
nothing changes.
What we should all glean from this experience, talking about this movie for 3 hours, is that this movie should be shown to every child. At the age of 8. As soon as you're on your 8th birthday, you must be forced to watch Coraline.
You have to watch Carolina.
Sweet Caroline. Sweet Coraline.
It'll give you an interesting perspective as an 8-year-old, and then you also have to watch it at 18, and then you also have to watch it at 28, and then 38. And then
it does grow up with you, but those messages should be shown to younger people to also keep them safe.
Absolutely. Really enjoyable overall. 4.1 out of 5. I think that I like this one the best of the 3 so far. However, it has the quote-unquote worst animation, which I actually like because you can see how practical everything is.
My eye is really fucking itchy right now. I don't know.
Okay, what do you mean by that? I put worst
Steven,
in quotes,
what are we
dude.
doing here?
I put worst in quotes.
Worst animation.
Yeah, because
I like it.
No, do you not see
I heard you, Jason.
I know.
I
was rubbing my eye for real, and then when as I was
you
rubbing
realize
it,
you had the middle finger.
I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this.
No. I like that. I rated this higher than, purposely rated this higher than the other two because it is better than the other two movies, but it has quote unquote the worst animation because it's not sleek and
it's more choppy.
13 years of technology behind it. That's what I meant. Sorry.
That's what I meant too with my middle finger.
Sorry, I had 13 years of fuck yous. I actually like because you can see how practical everything is. I would recommend watching this one first to see how far the studio has come. I give this movie finding a magical door in the wall where you find another universe that is even better than the last universe, but it doesn't turn into a nightmare world.
Oh.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Jason wants us all to go to a heaven world.
Yeah. That's what this did for me. I really fucking love this movie.
It's so good. I'm really happy you loved it.
Jason's gonna buy a Coraline Lego set now.
I would buy a fucking pink apartments or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Pink Palace.
Pink Palace Apartments. With that, just before we get out of here, Cass, do you have any? Do you want to plug the thing that you were working on at the end of the year, or is that still in transit?
It is technically made. It's going into some film fests, so I don't know all the details, but it looks cool.
Do you have anything you want to promote or plug, or do you have a message to the world even?
I don't know. I don't have anything to promote, but I am a lover of peace and kindness, so
it's pretty good.
If you see someone tomorrow and you're in a grumpy mood or they're in a grumpy mood,
power slam them through a table.
Yeah, no, treat them with give them a hi, hello.
Jason's like,
that's all I want.
That's a great message. Thank you, Cass.
Anytime.
Everybody give a warm applause to Cassandra Hodgins, one of my favorite guests that we've had on the show. Before we get out of here, just a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, you can see Steve on the Trivial Debates podcast this Saturday. If you're watching this in the year 2029, doesn't matter. You can probably go back and watch that episode anyway. It's going to be about Disney. You can find me at Superkick.
I predict I win.
Yeah, I predict you win too. Let's see how well this ages. If you lose, I delete this 4-hour episode. Just kidding. You can find me at Superkicked tomorrow night. I'm announcing Superkicked tomorrow night. I announce there once a month as the announcer for professional wrestling. You can find us on all social media around the globe, the internet globe, at Superkicked. Nope. At Hey, Did You See This One? We, of course, have all of our episodes in audio format across multiple platforms, YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify. We're on YouTube in video form. We're on Twitch in video form for most of our episodes. I think we did it, guys.
I think we did it.
At the end of all this, I got to find my mouse pointer. But hey, Cass.
Yeah.
There's a question we ask each and every week. Would you like to ask it for us?
Oh God, what is the question? Oh yeah. Hey, did you see this one?
It's playing, I think.
Oh.
I think.
I was just dancing for fun.
I'm gonna find out if it's actually playing.
I think music is not playing.
No,
it's just the
not.
video.
It's just the
Hi.
Music isn't playing.
I'm just dancing to nothing.
Didn't play.
What do we do now?
Jason.
I don't know.
The video played, but there was no music.
I don't know why there
happened.
was any fucking sound of it.
He said, "What the hell's going on over here?"
I will Vogue it out if I have
don't
to.
think this is the real Jason Cass. I think this is some sort of
Other
pin-pricked finger
Jason?
weirdo coming for us.
I'm a pin-picked freaking weirdo over here.